Chapter 1530, The Second and the Third. Chapter 1530, The Second and the Third. Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng teamed up and fought against God-destroying King. Even the top experts in the hall were holding their breath as they watched the battle, as they were afraid that they might miss a detail. After the battle had ended, everyone in the hall gasped in surprise. God-destroying King lost? Haha, Jian Wushuang and the white-robed swordsman are very impressive. We made a mistake previously. We thought the white-robed swordsman's darkness doctrine had reached the standard to pass the first level of Doctrine Palace. But in actual fact, both his darkness doctrine and massacre doctrine could pass the first level of Doctrine Palace. The flawless combination of both isn't any weaker than God-destroying King in terms of comprehension towards Heaven Way. If it wasn't because God-destroying King was that person's disciple and acquired skills from the tutelage from him, he might not be the white-robed swordsman's match. That Jian Wushuang, his consciousness attack and martial art motion is number 1 among all universe gods, while his defense power and close combat ability could be in the top 3 among all universe gods. With this combination, the threat against God-destroying King is even greater. The two of them teamed up. God-destroying King lost miserably. The Almighties discussed among themselves. As for the real gods from various forces, they looked at Lei Chao enviously. Lei Chao, the little guy from Lineage of Star, is very impressive. Dongwang and Jianghu lost to him even though they teamed up. He even fought against and could be considered to have defeated God-destroying King with the white-robed swordsman. Such capability? TSK. From the looks of it, Lineage of Star is going to give birth to another great expert again. Over the years, he might even stand a chance to step foot in the ranks of Almighty. He has great potential. Hearing the surrounding comments, even Lei Chao, who was of a cold disposition, revealed a smile. He replied to the surrounding real gods as he immediately sent the latest news to Hall Master Yuan and the higher-ups in Lineage of Star. In Wu Bei's cave where God-destroying King had fought earlier, Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng sat down to recover. They knew that there were countless universe gods looking at them, but they couldn't be bothered, nor did they mind. Even the formation of God-destroying King, Dongwang and Jianghu couldn't do anything to defeat them. There was definitely no one else in Wu Bei's cave that could pose a threat against both of them. Just then, a scrawny man plunged into the void from afar and came before Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng. Vientiane Tower Black Shirt greets both of you. The scrawny man was very polite. He bowed at Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng from 100 miles distance. People from Vientiane Tower? How can I help you? Jian Wushuang lifted his head and glanced at the scrawny man. I came here on the command of the higher-ups of Vientiane Tower. We'd like to inquire this Mr.'s real name. The scrawny man stole a glance at Duan Lingfeng carefully. Oh. Jian Wushuang was surprised. To ask for his name? Is it for Universe God ranking list? Yes, the scrawny man smiled. Mr. should know that Universe God ranking list is announced after Vientiane Tower concluded. Previously, Mr. White-Robed Swordsman defeated Demon Girl Ling Luo. Vientiane Tower naturally listed him in the 3rd place on Universe God ranking list. However, Vientiane Tower never knew his real name. Hence, we could only replace it with White-Robed Swordsman. But we can't just keep it that way. So they sent me to inquire. I understand. Jian Wushuang understood. He looked at Duan Lingfeng and he saw that Duan Lingfeng remained aloof. He immediately smiled and replied, Return and inform the higher-ups in Vientiane Tower that he is called Duan Lingfeng. The scrawny man beamed with joy. Thank you. Then the scrawny sent a message to the higher-ups in Vientiane Tower. In the blink of an eye, a few days passed. Outside the cave in the lofty hall. Everyone, Master Tower Chi Fu on the higher place in the hall. The entire hall immediately went quiet. Vientiane Tower sorted out the latest Universe God ranking list. Everyone take a look first. Tower Master Chi Fu waved and the brand new Universe God ranking list suddenly appeared before everyone again. Actually, Vientiane Tower sorted and released a Universe God ranking list every once in a while. However, the fight in Wu Bei's cave and the massacre was too insane, which led to huge changes in the ranking on Universe God ranking list. Hence, whenever there was time, Vientiane Tower would tidy up the ranking list again and release it. On the huge floating ranking list in the hall, the ranking appeared before the experts. In the first place on Universe God ranking list was still God-destroying King. There was no doubt. After all, Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng had teamed up and suppressed God-destroying King. When fighting 1-to-1, neither one of them could be God-destroying King's match. The second place on Universe God ranking list, Duan Lingfeng. The third place on Universe God ranking list, Jian Wushuang. The fourth place on Universe God ranking list, Zi Dongwang. The fifth place on Universe God ranking list, Demon Girl Ling Luo. The sixth place on Universe God ranking list, Xianzhu. The seventh place on Universe God ranking list, Tian Tian. The eighth place on Universe God ranking list, Universe God Luing. The ninth place on Universe God ranking list, 7 Universe King. The 10th place on Universe God ranking list, Demon King Ice Feather. The 11th place on Universe God ranking list, Universe God Emosho. Compared to before, the brand new Universe God ranking list had drastic changes again, especially in the top 10 on Universe God ranking list. Zi Dongwang, who was originally in the second place, fell to the fourth directly, while Duan Lingfeng and Jian Wushuang took over the second and the third place. As for Tian Tian, he was an expert who had suddenly risen during the days when the second level of cave opened. He had fought with Universe God Luing once and had the upper hand. He naturally was listed before Universe God Luing. Demon King Ice Feather and 7 Universe King had fought head-on once. In the end, 7 Universe King had the upper hand by a slight bit. Hence the exchange of their rankings. Besides that, there wasn't much difference. The experts in the hall generally agreed with the brand new Universe God ranking list. If there were to be any discussion, it was about Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng's ranking. Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng's power should be about the same. If we have to differentiate their strengths, I feel that Jian Wushuang is slightly stronger. After all, even God-destroying King can't endure his soul attack. Duan Lingfeng might not be able to endure it either. On top of that, his martial art motion is so creepy. He has almost no weakness. If he were to fight a life-and-death battle against Duan Lingfeng, he would definitely be the one to have the last laugh. I think so too, but it's hard to say. If they were to not really have a fight, it'd be difficult to differentiate their power. They are best friends and they don't worry much about Universe God ranking list. Do you think you'll be able to call for a match? There were almighties and real gods sparring casually. However, the argument went nowhere. In the end, the brand new Universe God ranking list released. Chapter 1531, The Third Level of the Cave. Chapter 1531, The Third Level of the Cave. Atop an isolated mountain in Wu Bei's cave, the god-destroying king, a fragile-looking young man, was sitting down with his legs crossed. With a few days' time, his divine power had more or less recovered. However, the damage that his consciousness had sustained would still require a period of time to recover. At the very moment he was staring at the new Universe God ranking list. Duan Lingfeng is second and Jian Wushuang is third. These two brats. The god-destroying king's eyes were glowing with a fierce, terrifying light. Ever since he was first in the Universe God ranking list, no Universe Gods had made him so miserable before. Not long ago, Zi Dongwang had also teamed up with 3 other Universe Gods who were in the top 20 of the Universe God ranking list to fight him. However, he had killed the 3 Universe Gods in that match and only Zi Dongwang managed to get away luckily. From that moment on, Zi Dongwang had stopped thinking of challenging him. However, at that very moment, Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng's appearance had caused him to feel pressured. I hope that I can still meet the both of you on the third level of cave. The god-destroying king smiled. After that he closed his eyes. Within a thick forest, Zi Dongwang was hiding. He had no choice. Since he was proud and ambitious, he had offended quite a number of people. For example, close to half of the top 20 in the Universe God ranking list could not stand him. Previously he was at his peak and he was not frightened at all. However, after fighting with and being seriously injured by Jian Wushuang, his power declined drastically and it still had not recovered completely. As such, he had to be careful. Zi Dongwang had also obtained the newest Universe God ranking list. Duan Lingfeng is second and Jian Wushuang is third. I'm actually fourth now? Damn it! Zi Dongwang bellowed. Even though he had already guessed that this would happen after his match with Jian Wushuang, he still could not help but be furious and he even harbored hatred. He resented Duan Lingfeng. However, he resented Jian Wushuang even more. Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng, both of you had better be prepared. I, Zi Dongwang, will definitely not accept a position behind the both of you. There would definitely come a day where I seize my position on the Universe God ranking list back. Zi Dongwang clenched both his fists and in no time, he continued to recuperate from his injuries. Back then, when Zi Dongwang and Jian Wushuang had clashed and he was defeated by Jian Wushuang, He was the first to escape. Later on, Jianghu had also escaped. However, the both of them separated from one another. At that very moment, Jianghu was also in a certain place in Wu Bei's cave, and he was looking at the newest universe god ranking list. With regard to the newest universe god ranking list, Jianghu could accept it. Previously, when the Vientiane Tower placed Jian Wushuang 5th in the universe god ranking list, I was a bit dissatisfied. However, looks like I was just being arrogant. With his abilities, he has the right to take the 3rd position. As for the 5 people in front of me, they are indeed stronger than me. Jianghu no longer had any dissatisfaction. He was different from Dongwang. Dongwang was totally dissatisfied being below others. However, Jianghu did not have such thoughts. As long as the other party's abilities were sufficient, he would accept them. Previously, he had questioned Jian Wushuang's abilities. Hence, he attacked Jian Wushuang. However, he no longer had thoughts of fighting against Jian Wushuang. It was clear that Jian Wushuang was not someone he could compete with. Although the newest universe god ranking list caused quite a bit of uproar when it was disseminated in Wu Bei's cave, many universe gods were able to accept the rankings on it. Especially the 3 people who were the top 3. The God-destroying king, Duan Lingfeng and Jian Wushuang. The abilities of these 3 experts were proven with their own fighting capabilities, and there was no need to doubt them. However, Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng themselves did not care about the rankings at all. The both of them were the same. They were not concerned with their reputation, they were only concerned with possessing absolute abilities. Therefore, although the Almighties, many real gods as well as many universe gods were having a heated discussion as to who belonged in the 2nd and 3rd positions, they were too lazy to care about such a point. No matter who was 2nd or 3rd, they were not too concerned. Time passed slowly. Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng had gradually recovered to their peak. Finally, 1 month's time was up. Buzz. Buzz. Space passages appeared in each and every corner of the 2nd level of the cave. Those space passages led to the 3rd level of Wu Bei's cave. Let's go. Let's go to the 3rd level. The most valuable treasure in Wu Bei's cave as well as opportunities are in the 3rd level. Let's hurry over quickly. Many universe gods who had completed their preparations a long time ago moved their bodies and headed into the space passage immediately. With that, they entered the space of the cave's 3rd level. Naturally, Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng did not hesitate, and they entered the 3rd level space too. The 3rd level was a spacious, open land. The open land was not very big and it was hundreds of miles wide at best. However, rays of lights glowed and a huge number of universe gods appeared in the open land at the same time. From the time Wu Bei's cave had opened to the present, more than 100,000 universe gods had entered Wu Bei's cave. Even though quite a number of universe gods had fallen after the crazy massacre on the 1st and 2nd level, there were still a little more than 100,000 universe gods remaining. At that moment, the 100,000 universe gods had gathered on the open land at the same time. This is... what's going on? He actually gathered all of us here? How exactly do we compete for the white blaze fruit tree? Many universe gods revealed a puzzled expression. Within the crowd, there were naturally some people who were more conspicuous. For example, God-destroying king. He was standing in the center of the open land quietly. At the start, there were a large number of universe gods surrounding him. However, as soon as he made a move, all the universe gods surrounding him, including an expert in the universe god ranking list, were all frightened away. Moreover, there was Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng who stood together. It's Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng. It's the both of them? Get away quickly, get away quickly. The universe gods around them also retreated to somewhere far away. Duan Lingfeng and I are not big demons who would start a massacre. Why are they so scared? After seeing what had happened, Jian Wushuang shook his head and laughed. They are not afraid, they are being respectful, the king of venomous worms' voice echoed in Jian Wushuang's head. Jian Wushuang understood. When he looked around, he also saw the god-destroying king who was a distance away, Dongwang, Jianghu and many other similar people. All these experts who stood at the top of the universe god ranking list had experienced something similar, where no one stood beside them. That was the weak being respectful to the strong. At that moment, at the void at the highest point of the open land, there was buzzing and the dim shadow appeared again. Ah! Little kids, welcome to the last level of my cave. This level is different from the previous 2 levels. There will not be any killings. No one is to fight in the 3rd level. If not only will he not able to get the treasure at the end, he will also die no matter who he is. Chapter 1532 3 Tests, 3 Chances. Chapter 1532, 3 Tests, 3 Chances. Real God Wu Bei's voice reverberated in the third level in the cave, and the 100,000 universe gods in the open ground were shocked. Among them, some heaved a sigh of relief. These were those who had gotten white blaze fruits in the first and second level of the cave. Then, with all universe gods gathered together, they would be besieged by a large crowd of universe god if massacres were to be permitted. Luckily, massacres were prohibited in the third level. In the void, real God Wu Bei's voice continued. On the third level of the cave, there's no fights nor massacres, only 3 tests. The one with the most outstanding performance among the 3 tests would receive a chance, and the chance naturally means a white blaze fruit tree. The universe gods on the open ground were in tumult. Test. 3 tests. I wonder what the context of the test will be. As the universe gods were talking among themselves, Universe God Lu Ying lowered his voice and asked, "Real God Wu Bei, do you mean the final chance will be decided according to our overall performance in the 3 tests?" No, Real God Wu Bei shook his head. "You misunderstood me. I mean there will be 3 tests, and the one who performs the best in every test will receive 1 chance. In other words, 3 tests and 3 chances. Naturally there are 3 white blaze fruit trees." What? The universe gods on the open ground were stunned. 3 white blaze fruit trees? Jian Wushuang's eyes opened in surprise. In the lofty hall outside the cave. Impossible. Fake. Real God Wu Bei is lying. 3 white blaze fruit trees, is he joking? The experts in the hall, including the 20 Almighties, stood up in surprise. 3 white blaze fruit trees. One must know, from the ancient times till then, there had only been 2 white blaze fruit trees in eternal chaotic world. The first tree was from the ancient times, which had been destroyed long ago. The second tree was the one that fell into real God Wu Bei's hands during the crazy fight. Back then, for the sapling of the white blaze fruit tree, many Almighties had participated in the fight. There were even Almighties that had died from the fight. But then real God Wu Bei said that he had 3 white blaze fruit trees. Hurry up and ask if he really has 3 white blaze fruit trees. If yes, ask how he got the other 2 trees. The red-haired elderly immediately sent in a message. On the open ground of the third level of the cave. Real God Wu Bei, you really have 3 white blaze fruit trees? Universe God Lu Ying asked suspiciously. Of course, otherwise, with only 1 white blaze fruit tree, how could I nurture so many white blaze fruits in such a short period of time? You must know that the total of white blaze fruits that appeared in the first and second level of the cave was about 80 pieces. Real God Wu Bei smiled faintly. As for the other 2 white blaze fruit trees' origin, I can't explain much. I can only tell you that there was an expert that helped to cultivate it. An expert that helped to cultivate it? Everyone on the open ground gasped. In the lofty hall. Back when real Wu Bei got the white blaze fruit tree, it was just a sapling, and it was not too long ago. During this time, even if the sapling grew mature, it would be impossible for one tree to have so many white blaze fruits. Hence, he must be telling the truth, the red-haired elderly said. It is believable. It seems that there was really an expert that had helped him to cultivate 2 white blaze fruit trees. Who could the expert be? Could it be one of the few? No way. Even though the few are powerful, they might not be capable of cultivating a new white blaze fruit tree. Regardless of who the expert was, there's a great chance laid before us. Previously, I thought there was only 1 white blaze fruit tree and the possibility of us getting it was rather low. But now there's a total of 3 trees and the possibility of us getting 1 is much greater. We shall see these guys' performance. Although the Almighties were thirsty for white blaze fruit trees, they could only place their hopes in the universe gods in the cave. They could only rely on the universe gods to fight for the white blaze fruit tree for them. In the cave. I know everything that happens in the cave will definitely be watched closely by many Almighties. If so, let me tell the Almighties, the chance is laid before you. As for if you can get it or not, it depends if the guys that you sent in respectively are striving for it or not, real God Wu Bei said with a smile. All right. I've said what I have to. Then, 3 tests, let's begin with the first one straight away. As he spoke, real God Wu Bei's blurry shadow waved his hand. Virum. A boundless power concentrated in the void above the open ground. Then there was a huge chessboard that appeared. On the chessboard, there were only black chess pieces but no white chess pieces. There was a total of 1,000 black chess pieces. Looking at the huge chessboard, the universe gods on the open ground were shocked. What is this? Chess. This test would it be for us to play chess? No, it's not that simple. Every chess piece on the board gives me a very different feeling. It caused a great commotion at the open ground. Jian Wushuang, who was in the middle of the open ground, saw the huge chess set that had appeared in the void above and he stared. This is the Scattered Stars game. Yes, it's the Scattered Stars game. Jian Wushuang's eyes shined. He was not unfamiliar with the Scattered Stars game. Back when he had first stepped foot in Eternal Chaotic World and wandered in Deyu World, the master of Deyu Palace, who was a universe god in the third heaven on the peak of Deyu World, had taken out the Scattered Stars game. However, the master of Deyu Palace only had the little Scattered Stars game and there were only 100 chess pieces. Hence, there were only 100 moves. Even so, Jian Wushuang had received great benefits from resolving the little Scattered Stars game back then, especially regarding his understanding toward swordsmanship, which had advanced by leaps and bounds. Jian Wushuang had already found out from King of Venomous Worms that the Scattered Stars game was of an unusual origin. It was created by an almighty. Not only was there a little Scattered Stars game, but there was also a great Scattered Stars game. There were 10,000 chess pieces in a complete little Scattered Stars game, with a total of 10,000 moves. The huge chess board that appeared in the void above the open ground wasn't a complete great Scattered Stars game. After all, there were only 1,000 chess pieces. However, to many universe gods, the Scattered Stars game with 1,000 chess pieces were already unfathomable. The first test is to resolve the Scattered Stars game. Jian Wushuang's pupils shrunk. Chapter 1533 Scattered Stars game with 1,000 moves. Chapter 1533 Scattered Stars game with 1,000 moves. The dim shadow of real god Wu Bei stood high in the sky and he was paying attention to the expressions of everyone. The first test is to solve this Scattered Stars game. The Scattered Stars game was created by an extremely old almighty. In the Eternal Chaotic World, it is extremely popular. Among all of you here, some of you must have either seen, heard of, or even tried to solve it before. The rules of this Scattered Stars game are simple. There are 1,000 black chess pieces on the chessboard and this is equivalent to 1,000 moves. Every move is a test. I will give all of you 100 years' time. After 100 years, the person who is able to resolve the greatest number of moves will be able to obtain the white blaze fruit tree of this first test. After real god Wu Bei had finished his speech, a small chessboard appeared in front of the universe gods in the open land. Everyone had 1,000 black chess pieces. For every move that was solved by the universe god in front of the small chessboard, one black chess piece would disappear. Let's begin. Real god Wu Bei waved his hand and said. The universe gods on the open land sat down in front of their chessboards with their legs crossed. After that, they entered a state of comprehension. Duan Lingfeng. Have you ever come across the Scattered Stars game? Jian Wushuang did not rush to solve the Scattered Stars game. Instead, he looked toward Duan Lingfeng who was beside him. I have heard of it before. However, I have never come across it, Duan Lingfeng said. Since that's the case, I shall give you some tips. In order to solve the Scattered Stars game, we cannot do it quickly. We need to do it step by step and also entrench ourselves in every step, Jian Wushuang said. Since he had resolved the Scattered Stars game before, he had some experience and also knew of some tactics. Understood, Duan Lingfeng nodded his head. In no time, the both of them had sat down in front of their own chessboards and begun to solve the chess set. The Scattered Stars game. Jian Wushuang grinned and his consciousness entered the first chess piece. Whoosh! The scenery changed and Jian Wushuang appeared in a pale piece of land. The ground was filled with snow and in the front portion of the land quietly stood a white-robed figure. When it saw Jian Wushuang appearing, it unsheathed its long sword and an extremely sharp sword headed toward Jian Wushuang's throat. Jian Wushuang was already prepared. With a release of his sword light, the sharp sword was destroyed. In an instant the first move was resolved. As expected, the first move is the same as the first move that I solved for the little Scattered Stars game back then. If I'm not wrong, the first 100 moves of this chess set should also be the same, Jian Wushuang giggled. Back then at Deyu Universe, I had just cleared the inverse cultivation test and become a universe god of the first heaven. At that time, I managed to resolve all 100 moves of the Scattered Stars game. Now, I am a universe god of the second heaven and my abilities are at the top among the universe gods. I wonder how many moves I can resolve in 100 years' time? Time to begin. Jian Wushuang closed his eyes and started to solve the chess set with all his might. Since he had solved the first 100 moves of the chess set before, there was no need for him to waste any time. Thus in no time he began to solve the 101st move. For the 101st move, Jian Wushuang could solve it easily. Moreover, he was not anxious. He had to do it orderly and steadily so that he could accumulate the understanding of the sword principles continuously. In the vast hall outside the cave. It's the Scattered Stars game? The first test that real God Wu Bei prepared is actually to solve the Scattered Stars game. He wants to test out the comprehension level of those little kids. Many experts in the big hall were having a discussion with one another. The Scattered Stars game had always been a test of the level of comprehension. In the Scattered Stars game, one would be unable to sense the existence of any doctrines. Be it doctrines that one had unlocked or the power of heaven way that one had comprehended, none of them could be detected. Moreover, unique skills and secret skills could not be used. Hence, no matter how high one's unique skill level was, when solving the Scattered Stars game, he would not have the upper hand. If one wished to solve the Scattered Stars game, he could only rely on his own weapons and understanding. Take Jian Wushuang as an example. As he was proficient in sword principles, what would be directed at him would be his understanding of sword principles. Duan Lingfeng was proficient in saber principles. Hence, what would be directed at him would be his understanding of saber principles. For such an understanding, one would need to analyze and try to figure it out continuously while solving the moves. Naturally, the level of comprehension was the most important. The Scattered Stars game is extremely advanced. Under normal circumstances, a universe god of the third heaven solving 500 moves within 100 years' time could be considered a top genius. However, now Wu Bei's cave has practically gathered all the top geniuses in the eternal chaotic world. As such, there should be quite a number of kids who can resolve 500 moves. With so many geniuses gathered together, resolving 500 moves alone might no longer be considered the top. Let's watch. There will definitely be someone among them who can solve 600 moves. A universe god solving 600 moves of the Scattered Stars game within 100 years' time. Only then is that considered impressive. However, we won't know how many such monsters there will be. Let's wait and see. Many experts in the big hall were waiting in anticipation. At that moment, over 100,000 universe gods in the open space of the third level of the cave were displaying their own abilities with all their might to solve the Scattered Stars game. The Scattered Stars game would get more difficult as more moves were solved, with the most difficult moves at the end. As everyone present was at the peak of the universe god of the third heaven, the first 300 moves were easy to them. In just 10 days' time, most of the 100,000 universe gods in the open space had solved over 300 moves. After 1 year, more than half of the 100,000 universe gods in the open had solved 400 moves. At the 400th move, the difficulty level increased greatly and everyone started to slow down. For example, Jian Wushuang, Duan Lingfeng and Xanzhu and even the God-destroying king's solving speed was very slow. Under normal circumstances they would require a few days to solve a move. Compared to them, among the universe gods, there was one person who was very dazzling. This person was Dongwang. From the start, his solving speed was shocking. He had only taken 7 days to solve the first 300 moves. As for solving the 400th move, he only used half a year's time. It should be known that apart from him, the 7 Universe King, who was the second fastest to solve the 400th move, had used 8 months' time. As for other people, they used 9 or 10 months or even a year. For example, it had taken Jian Wushuang a total of 1 year and 4 months' time. Now 10 years had passed. Dongwang had already solved the 490th move and he was not too far away from the doorstep of the 500th move. As for the 7 Universe King, who was the closest to him, he had only solved the 482nd move. Moreover, it was obvious that his speed had also decreased and he was unable to compete with Dongwang. As for the people behind the 7 Universe Kings such as Jian Wushuang, Duan Lingfeng, the God-destroying king and Ling Luo, they were fluctuating between the 430th and 440th move. Compared to Dongwang, their speeds were obviously a lot slower. Chapter 1534, Dongwang who prided himself. Chapter 1534. Dongwang who prided himself. On the third level of the cave, Dongwang's speed of resolving the Scattered Stars game was extremely fast. The 500th move. There was a sharp light glistening in Dongwang's eyes. On the chessboard before him, half of the 1,000 black chess pieces had disappeared. Then Dongwang glanced at everyone around him, especially those on Universe God ranking list. He realized that God-destroying king, who was on the first place on Universe God ranking list, was only resolving 450th move. Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng were resolving the 441st move and the 447th move. The few others were roughly on similar moves. Haha, they have yet to even solve the 450th move. Too slow, too slow. God-destroying king, Duan Lingfeng and Jian Wushuang, aren't the three of you at a higher ranking than I am? The three of you are just so faster and faster with every step. I already solved the 500th move. According to this speed, in the 100 time frame, I shall solve 600 moves or even 700 moves. These people will fall far behind me. The white blaze fruit tree for the first test is mine. No one can fight against me. Dongwang was smug with success and he felt every inch a hero. Very soon he continued to solve. He didn't know that in the crowd around him, some of the top geniuses behind him were looking at him in ridicule. In the lofty hall in the outside world, Dongwang has already solved the 500th move. It has only been 12 years. He is really quite fast. Among the almighties, the unicorn red-haired elderly sneered. The other almighties around him were ridiculing Dongwang too. This Dongwang, I thought highly of him previously. Even though he lost to Duan Lingfeng and Jian Wushuang, he was still considered an impressive genius. But from what it seems now, he is just an idiot. He thought to solve the scattered stars game with only speed? A coldly elegant woman spoke. The coldly elegant woman was also an almighty. Humph, his speed is really fast, far beyond the others. However, he didn't accumulate any experience. This is just like a cultivator who took an elixir to forcefully increase his power and realm. Although the speed at the beginning is really fast, his potential was cut off entirely. I am certain that Dongwang definitely can't solve the 550th level. Hearing the coldly elegant woman's remark, the almighties exchanged a look and laughed. Obviously they agreed with what the former had said. Actually, he can't be blamed. Dongwang was a solo expert after all. There wasn't any expert behind him to give him pointers, nor tell him about techniques to solve the scattered stars game. Naturally, he thought it was best to solve it quickly, the owner of Sky Sword Mountain said with a smile. Humph, among the top 10 geniuses on Universe God ranking list, Duan Lingfeng and 7 Universe King have no backer and they are solo experts too. Why did they know to slowly solve it and accumulate experience but Dongwang didn't? It's because he was arrogant and got himself too many enemies. They knew that he took a wrong approach but no one was willing to remind him. Plus, even if there was no one who reminded him, he should be able to tell easily. What about God-destroying King, Duan Lingfeng and Jian Wushuang, whose comprehension levels are not on the same level, if not better than his? Why would the resolving speed of the three of them be faster than him? Why didn't he think about it? Idiot. He's an idiot, the coldly elegant lady humphed. True. If Dongwang were to be a kinder person and have made some good friends, the others would remind him that he was on a wrong path. Just like Duan Lingfeng. He didn't know anything about Scattered Stars game, but Jian Wushuang had reminded him right at the beginning to proceed steadily and not rush through it. In the end, Dongwang's human relationship was too bad. Every genius at the scene was watching him like he was a joke. Who was willing to remind him? They let him take the wrong route. Dongwang thought highly of himself. He saw that Jian Wushuang and the rest fell far behind him and he thought their comprehension level was not high as his. He was a total joke. In the cave, the universe gods were trying their best to solve the Scattered Stars game. Dongwang's speed continued. In the blink of an eye, 30 years flew past. Phew. Dongwang let out a breath of relief and slowly opened his eyes. He looked at the chessboard before him that the 521 black chess pieces disappeared. The 521st move is so meticulous. It trapped me for 3 years, Dongwang frowned. He who desired to lead by a wide margin was stuck at that one move for 3 years. It naturally led him to dissatisfaction. But then he glanced at his surroundings and wanted to see how the others were doing. Then his pupils shrunk at the sight. God-destroying King, Duan Lingfeng, Jian Wushuang, including Xianzhu and the others, they have already solved the 500th move. God-destroying King and 7 Universe King solved the 511th move. They were merely 10 moves away from me? How did their speeds pick up so quickly so suddenly? It seems that I have to speed up and quickly solve 600 moves to leave them far behind. Dongwang felt a sudden pressure. He immediately started to solve the 522nd move. But he didn't know that it wasn't that Jian Wushuang, God-destroying king, or any one of them had become faster, but that he had become slower. On the 521st move, he was troubled for 3 years. But Jian Wushuang and the others. Until then they have yet to reach any bottleneck. The time continued to fly past. After 50 years, Dongwang remained at the 540th move, but God-destroying king and 7-universe king caught up to him successively. They reached the 540th move. They caught up. No. How can I let you catch up with me? Solve, hurry up and solve. Dongwang immediately panicked. But no matter how anxious he was, he couldn't solve the move. In a few months' time, God-destroying king and 7-universe king solved the move and stepped foot on the 541st move. Dongwang, who had been leading by wide margin previously, was finally overtaken. Not long after God-destroying king and 7-universe king overtook him, Duan Lingfeng Jian Wushuang, Xianzhu Universe God Luing, Demon King Ice Feather and all the other geniuses in the top 10 on Universe God ranking list also overtook him. Then even those in the top 20 and the top 30 on Universe God ranking list were above him too. Dongwang was dumbfounded by the situation. How could it turn out like this? Chapter 1535, The Winner. Chapter 1535, The Winner. In the blink of an eye, 80 years passed. Many universe gods were gathered in the open space, and the god-destroying king was sitting down with his legs crossed in the center of the crowd. On the chess set in front of him, the 600th black chess piece was dissipating slowly. The 600th move. As expected of the god-destroying king. Out of so many universe gods, he is the first one to solve the 600th move. I am also an expert of the universe god ranking list. However, until now, I have only managed to solve the 521st move. The gap is really huge. Many universe gods at the open space were all gasping. Among the universe gods, many of them had lost their confidence and gave up on the test a long time ago. At that moment they were not solving their chess sets. Instead, they were observing other people's performances. Of course, they were only observing and dared not disturb them. After all, real God Wu Bei had already said, in the 3rd level of cave, if anyone dared to make a move or disturb other people during their test, they would be killed instantly. Inside the vast hall outside the cave, many experts were having a conversation. The god-destroying king has already solved the 600th move and he is the first to do so. I wonder how many more people will be able to achieve this feat. There are still 20 years, so there should be a few more. The 500th move of the Scattered Stars game is a big threshold. Similarly, the 600th move is also a big threshold. The god-destroying king was the only person who had passed the 600th move so far. However, there were a few people following closely behind him. 7 months later, Duan Lingfeng caught up with the god-destroying king and resolved the 600th move as well. After that, another 3 years passed and Jian Wushuang also achieved the same feat. The first test had gone on for 90 years and there were only 10 years remaining in the time limit of 100 years. Out of the universe gods, there were 3 people who had resolved the greatest number of moves. The 3 people were the god-destroying king, Duan Lingfeng and Jian Wushuang. All of them were currently on the 603rd move and it seemed that all of them were stuck there. For the Scattered Stars game, the more moves that are resolved, the harder it gets. For a universe god to solve 500 moves within 100 years, he can already be considered a top genius. As for those who are able to solve 600 moves, they are definitely monster-level existences. Such monsters only come by once every million years. However, in this generation, 3 of them actually appeared at the same time. These 3 people are true geniuses. The first white blaze fruit tree will definitely fall into one of their hands. However, I wonder who that person will be? It should be the god-destroying king. He has the strongest abilities. Moreover, compared to Duan Lingfeng and Jian Wushuang, he was the first person to solve the 600th move. That might not be the case. No matter what, we will be able to see the outcome soon. If I'm not wrong, among the 3 of them, whoever solves the 603rd move first should be able to obtain the white blaze fruit tree. I agree. Many experts were having a conversation with one another. However, Jian Wushuang, who was in the center of the open space, opened his eyes, and on the chessboard in front of him, the 603rd black chess piece had already started to dissipate. It's Jian Wushuang. He has solved the 603rd move. It's actually him? Many almighties in the big hall revealed a surprised expression. Previously, they had thought that it was possible for either Jian Wushuang, the God-destroying king, or Duan Lingfeng to win. However, they felt that the God-destroying king had the highest probability, followed by Duan Lingfeng and finally Jian Wushuang. However, who could expect that Jian Wushuang, who they thought had the lowest probability, would actually solve the 603rd move faster than the God-destroying king and Duan Lingfeng? This little kid. If my guess is not wrong, he only started to use his strength after solving the 600th move. The red-haired old man with a horn on his forehead said in a low voice. That's highly possible. The owner of the Sky Sword Mountain also nodded his head and his eyes glowed brilliantly. Be it the God-destroying king or Duan Lingfeng, both of them only started to use their strength at the 590th move and they stopped advancing steadily. As such, Jian Wushuang was 3 years slower than them in solving the 600th move. However, Jian Wushuang's reserve strength is obviously greater. The outcome is decided. For the first test, the most outstanding person is Jian Wushuang. The first white blaze fruit tree is his. The other Almighties also nodded their heads. For the remaining 10 years, as per what the Almighties had said, Jian Wushuang had reserved a lot of strength. After taking the lead from the God-destroying king and Duan Lingfeng, he continued leading. When the God-destroying king and Duan Lingfeng had solved the 603rd move, he had solved the 604th move. While the God-destroying king and Duan Lingfeng were still at the 604th move, he had solved the 605th move. Finally, the time limit of 100 years was up. In the end, Jian Wushuang solved a total of 607 moves. As for the God-destroying king and Duan Lingfeng, both of them solved 604 moves. Jian Wushuang had actually taken 3 years longer than the two of them to solve the 600th move. However, the end result was Jian Wushuang leading the two of them by 3 moves. As such, it could be said that Jian Wushuang's level of comprehension was not really a lot higher than theirs. Instead, it could be said that his understanding of the Scattered Stars game was a lot greater than theirs. After all, he had analyzed with great concentration and solved the small Scattered Stars game before. As for the God-destroying king and Duan Lingfeng, it was the first time that both of them had come across the Scattered Stars game. Therefore, Jian Wushuang naturally had an advantage. If it were his first time coming across the Scattered Stars game, his performance would probably be about the same as the God-destroying king and Duan Lingfeng's. At best, it would only be slightly better. If he could solve another move, it would already be impressive. After all, the God-destroying king and Duan Lingfeng were the kind of super geniuses that appeared once every million years. Buzz. When the time limit was up, the giant chessboard that was floating in the void as well as the chessboards in front of the universe gods all started to dissipate. The universe gods who were sitting in the open space with their legs crossed stood up in succession. Their scorching hot eyes then looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang. The first white blaze fruit tree is his. He actually managed to solve 607 steps of the Scattered Stars game within 100 years. That's really impressive. The universe gods were gasping in admiration. However, there was nothing that they could do. The test was a fair competition and Jian Wushuang had used his own abilities to outperform everyone. Hence, the first white blaze fruit tree naturally belonged to him. I have already done my best. However, the number of moves that I solved is still less than him. The God-destroying king also glanced at Jian Wushuang and he shook his head after that. At the open space, apart from Jian Wushuang, there was one more person who attracted a lot of attention. This person was Dongwang. However, Dongwang was a complete joke in the eyes of many universe gods who were present at the open space. Chapter 1536, Strength-Oriented, Explosion began. Chapter 1536, Strength-Oriented, Explosion began. Dongwang had led by a wide margin at the beginning, but later on, he had encountered hindrances one after another. He would meet an obstacle in every move. When the 100 move time limit was up, Dongwang had only solved 545 moves. Although the result was considered good amongst universe gods, it was not aligned with his ranking on universe god ranking list. After all, among all universe gods, there were many who had solved more moves than he had and there was a total of 57 of them. With such a result, Dongwang was so embarrassed that he wished there was somewhere he could hide. In the lofty hall. Lei Chao, congratulations. There is really a great disciple in Lineage of Star. Not only did Lineage of Star receive 9 white blaze fruits, but you also receive a white blaze fruit tree too. All the benefits are taken by Lineage of Star. Real gods from each force and sect, including the Almighties, were looking at Lei Chao. The gazes were rather complicated. There was envy, jealousy, and even greed. Being watched by the burning gazes, even Lei Chao's facial expression grew strange. He didn't reply to the people before him, nor could he reply to them. He immediately sent an update to Hall Master Yuan. Yuan, hurry up and inform Palace Master. Request him to stop his cultivation and rush here. Lei Chao sounded in a hurry. You want Palace Master to stop his cultivation? Hall Master Yuan creased his eyebrows. Although Jian Wushuang got 9 white blaze fruit from Wu Bei's cave, the Almighties won't take action against him for the few pieces of white blaze fruit without concern for their reputations, right? If it were only a few pieces of white blaze fruits, there'd be no need for Palace Master to come on his own. But the thing is that Jian Wushuang got a white blaze fruit too. It's a white blaze fruit tree. Its value is equal to a few hundred white blaze fruits. Such a precious treasure. I don't think the Almighties can stand the temptation. If Palace Master were to not come personally, I reckon the Almighties will fight over it at the very moment Jian Wushuang exits the cave, Lei Chao said. White blaze fruit tree? Hall Master Yuan was shocked at first, then quickly grew excited. Jian Wushuang got a white blaze fruit tree. Yes. There's a total of 3 white blaze trees in Wu Bei's cave and he got the first one, Lei Chao said. That's great. Let me inform the Palace Master now. Hall Master Yuan's voice was obviously delighted. Very soon, Hall Master Yuan came before the most mysterious cave dwelling in the boundless Milky Way. Palace Master, Hall Master Yuan stood outside the cave dwelling as he bowed politely. What's the matter? There was an ancient and deep voice from the cave dwelling. This is what happened. Hall Master Yuan immediately told the story. White blaze fruit tree. The little guy from Lineage of Star got it? A surprised voice traveled from the cave dwelling. In the next moment, the entrance of the cave dwelling was wide open. A white-haired ancient figure slowly walked out. I never knew that Lineage of Star had such a chance. The white-haired elderly muttered. A white blaze fruit tree is worth a trip. Just as he said that, the white-haired elderly moved and suddenly vanished from the universe. Hall Master Yuan was surprised at the sight. He immediately sent Lei Chao a message. Lei Chao, Palace Master has already departed personally. However, even with Palace Master's power, he'll require a few days to get to Wu Bei's cave from Star Land. Tell Jian Wushuang to not leave from Wu Bei's cave before Palace Master gets there personally. Lei Chao nodded heavily and there was a great commotion in his heart, but he looked rather composed. As for the jealous, greedy gazes from the surroundings, he didn't worry. He knew for sure that as long as Palace Master came personally, no matter how greedy the people were, no one would dare to cross the line. In the cave. The first test has ended. The blurry image of real God Wu Bei overlooked the universe gods. In the end, his gaze fixed onto Jian Wushuang, a universe god who is able to solve 607 moves in 100 years' time. You are doing very well. You will definitely get one of the 3 chances in the end. Thank you, Jian Wushuang bowed slightly to real God Wu Bei. Then let's begin the second test, real God Wu Bei said, and he waved. There were immediately a few space tunnels that appeared in the air in the void above the open ground. The second test is in the space tunnels. As for the context of the test, it is much easier than the first test. You'll see your opponent the moment you enter the space tunnel. What you need to do is to fight your opponent. The longer you last in the fight, the better. Actually, to be straightforward, the second test is to test your respective powers. Whoever is stronger will be able to get the second white blaze fruit. After hearing what real God Wu Bei said, the faces of the universe gods on the open ground grew strange. They couldn't help but look at one person. The person was God-destroying King. God-destroying King, who everyone was looking at, smiled too. Strength. Strength-oriented test. One should know that God-destroying King was widely recognized as the #1 universe god in eternal chaotic world. His strength was no doubt the strongest. The second test had yet to start, but everyone already knew the final result. We don't have to compete for this test. A test relying entirely on strength. Who is capable enough to win against God-destroying King? Even Duan Lingfeng and Jian Wushuang couldn't be compared favorably with God-destroying King. Many universe gods sighed with emotion. If Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng were to team up, they could really win against God-destroying King. However, one-on-one, they were definitely not God-destroying King's match. Both of them had a thorough knowledge of themselves. It seems that we don't stand a chance in the second test, Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. We don't, but I'd really like to compete with you in this test. Duan Lingfeng looked at Jian Wushuang. Oh. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and immediately understood Duan Lingfeng's plan. If so, let's do it, Jian Wushuang laughed heartily. In the second test, he and Duan Lingfeng didn't stand a chance. No one could fight against God-destroying king. Not for the white blaze tree but to compete with one another. They would try their best to get through the test. In the void, real God Wu Bei spoke, "In order to save time, there is no need for everyone to join this test. In the eternal chaotic world, isn't there a universe God ranking list? Whoever is on universe God ranking list can try to challenge. The rest can skip this." Chapter 1537, Last Chance. Chapter 1537, Last Chance. As soon as real God Wu Bei finished his speech, he destroyed the hopes of more than 99% of the universe gods. After all, although there were more than 100,000 universe gods present, there were only 100 universe gods with the fighting capabilities to make it into the universe god ranking list. Of course, after knowing the content of the second test, those universe gods did not hold any more hope. Let's begin. Real God Wu Bei signaled the start of the test. Boom. Frightening, destructive aura burst forth abruptly. Under the observation of numerous eyes, the god-destroying king walked over slowly. It was obvious that he planned to be the first one to take the test. In no time he entered one of the space passages. Everyone in the open space was also waiting silently. As for what the god-destroying king had come across in the space passage, only real God Wu Bei knew about it. After a long time, the god-destroying king finally emerged from the space passage. After that, the universe gods in the universe god ranking list entered the space passages in succession. Even though they knew that did not have much hope, they still did their best in the test. However, it was obvious that the time that they stayed in the space passage could hardly be compared to the god-destroying king. In less than 2 hours' time, most of the geniuses in the universe god ranking list had gone into the space passage. At that moment, Duan Lingfeng, it's our turn now. Jian Wushuang took a glance at Duan Lingfeng who was beside him. Give it your all, Duan Lingfeng said indifferently. Definitely, Jian Wushuang grinned and the both of them moved immediately. When the two of them appeared in front of two separate space passages, it caused everyone at the open space to be in uproar. It's Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng. The two of them actually planned to go together. Could it be that they wished to use this test to have a showdown? That's highly possible. They are second and third on the universe god ranking list respectively. However, there is still a debate going on regarding their abilities. Now, are they finally going to challenge one another? The universe gods present were all filled with excitement. Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng did not disappoint those universe gods and both of them entered their respective space passages. Swoosh! With a glowing light, Jian Wushuang appeared in a vast, dark void and in front of him stood 10 ice figures. When they saw the Jian Wushuang appearing, the 10 ice figures opened their eyes instantly. With a flash of murderous intent, then headed toward Jian Wushuang at the same time. 10 of them? Jian Wushuang's eyes squinted slightly and his soul power burst forth at once, forming a giant, golden divine ape. When Jian Wushuang activated his divine power, 18 shadows appeared at the same time. Swish, 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 swish. Jian Wushuang went all out and fought the 10 ice figures with lightning speed. As he fought, he realized that the abilities of the 10 figures were increasing continuously. The second test is quite similar to the lineage of Star's Supreme Tower. The only difference is that the Supreme Tower has some restrictions and I am unable to display my full fighting capabilities. For this test, I can unleash my full abilities, Jian Wushuang giggled. By relying on his own martial art motion and sword principles, combined with his soul power, Jian Wushuang fought against the 10 ice figures. Time passed by. In the open space, numerous universe gods were waiting quietly. After some time, a shadow appeared from one of the space passages. It's Duan Lingfeng. Duan Lingfeng has come out. But Jian Wushuang is still inside the space passage? The universe gods present all started to have a puzzled expression. Duan Lingfeng also raised his eyebrows. However, in 2 breaths of time after Duan Lingfeng was sent out from the space passage, Jian Wushuang also left the space passage. Jian Wushuang, you have won. Duan Lingfeng looked at Jian Wushuang. I have only stayed inside for 2 breaths of time longer than you. Moreover, I am only able to stay inside slightly longer due to my martial art motion. In this test, my martial art motion has given me a lot of advantage while facing the 10 battle puppets, Jian Wushuang said. What he had said was true. In a battle surrounded by enemies, martial art motion was indeed the most important. Since he was the most proficient in martial art motion, he was able to last longer while besieged by the 10 battle puppets. However, when comparing abilities, Jian Wushuang didn't think that he was stronger than Duan Lingfeng. Perhaps so, Duan Lingfeng nodded his head indifferently and did not say much. In the blink of an eye, all the experts who were confident in their abilities had gone into the space passage to take the test. However, the result was obvious. The person who stayed in the space passage for the longest period of time for the second test was the God-destroying king. He had managed to stay a total of 8 breaths time longer than Jian Wushuang, who came in second for the test. Naturally, the God-destroying king obtained the white blaze fruit tree for the second test. Next is the third test. Since this is the last test, this also means that there is only one white blaze fruit tree remaining. Real God Wu Bei chuckled. After his speech, the universe gods present became anxious. The third test was their last chance. If they were to miss this final opportunity, their journey in Wu Bei's cave would come to an end. I must grasp this final opportunity. This is the final white blaze tree remaining and I must obtain it. A number of universe gods present became extremely fired up like never before. At the very moment, even the almighties and real gods from various powerhouses who were in the big hall outside the cave became anxious. Among them, there were people who had obtained the white blaze fruit before. As for the 3 white blaze fruit trees, which were the most valuable treasures in Wu Bei's cave, they had never obtained one before. Universe gods, the third test is a bit special. Are all of you ready? Real God Wu Bei looked down at the universe gods below him with interest. Many universe gods in the open space clenched their fists tightly and their eyes were glowing brilliantly. They had already finished their preparations for the third test. Since all of you are ready, let the third test begin. Real God Wu Bei laughed strangely. In the next moment, a thick white light appeared from the edge of the third level. The white light was extremely beautiful. It looked as if it possessed an infinite amount of magical power and it covered the open space quickly. Naturally, the universe gods in the open space were also shrouded by the white light. What is this? Is this white light a spell? It's a spell. Furthermore, it's a very wonderful spell. Quite a number of universe gods were muttering to themselves. However, in a split second, many of them realized that the scenery around them had started to change. At the same time, their eyes seemed to have become tired and they closed involuntarily as if they were about to sleep. However, their consciousness was still awake. Swoosh! The universe changed. When everyone opened their eyes again, they realized that they had appeared in an endless black corridor. Chapter 1538 Void Corridor. Chapter 1538 Void Corridor. This is. Jian Wushuang was in the dark corridor too. He was looking at his surroundings. Dreamland? Jian Wushuang's pupils contracted and he could instantly tell that he should be in a phantasmagoria. However, even though he could tell that he was in a dreamland, he couldn't shake off the phantasmagoria forcefully. I can't forcefully shake it off then. I can only let the dreamland change freely, Jian Wushuang was certain about it. Just then he suddenly saw the light at the end of the dark corridor which was right in front of him. The light was very dim but Jian Wushuang saw a string of hope. That's the exit. As long as I get there, I'll be able to exit this dreamland. Jian Wushuang had already decided. In the dreamland, Jian Wushuang would follow what his heart said without hesitation. Jian Wushuang immediately plunged directly towards the very end of the dark corridor. That very moment, not only him but also more than 100,000 universe gods in the third level were facing the same scene as him. Everyone fell into the phantasmagoria of a dark corridor. At the same time, they also faintly saw the light at the end of their fields of vision. Just like Jian Wushuang, the universe gods immediately understood that the light was where the exit of the dreamland located. It was also the very end of the dark corridor. Hence, all the universe gods started plunging towards the end of the corridor. In the dark corridor, their speeds weren't restrained and every one of them gave full rein to their power. However, even plunging forward with such speed, after 1 day, 10 days, 1 month, they could still barely see the light, let alone reach it. Although the universe gods were shocked, they followed their true will and continued to plunge forward. The dark corridor seemed to be never-ending. Although the universe gods continued to plunge forward, after 1 year, 2 years and even 10 years, the light at the end of the tunnel still didn't grow any brighter. Very quickly, the universe gods had been traveling in the dark corridor for 150 years. In the dark corridor, a purple-haired bewitching maiden suddenly slowed to a stop. She looked at the light at the very end of the corridor, which was still very dim, and her eyebrows were tightly knitted. What's going on? I've been traveling forward for 150 years in this corridor, but I have yet to reach the end of it, and I have yet to leave this dreamland? Could it be that I made a wrong judgment? The light at the end of my sight isn't where the exit of the dreamland is? The purple-haired bewitching maiden thought, and she began to waver in her determination. However, just as she wavered from her action, on the open ground of the third level, the purple-haired bewitching maiden's eyes suddenly shot open. I resolved the dreamland? The purple-haired bewitching maiden muttered. Resolved the dreamland? Hee, you didn't break it, but you lost the right to continue the test. Real God Wu Bei's voice suddenly rang inside her ears. He spoke with pity. You only stayed in the dreamland for 150 years and you're sent out. You are so fragile at heart. I lost. The purple-haired bewitching maiden looked at her surrounding in surprise. She realized that everyone else was still keeping their eyes closed under the influence of the white light, besides herself. They were obviously still in the dreamland, but only she was awake. It turns out that I am the first to be eliminated. The purple-haired bewitching maiden couldn't do anything but smile bitterly. However, not long after she came back to reality, the universe gods around her woke up one after another. What happened? Did we walk out of the dark corridor? The universe gods were shocked, but they quickly understood that they had failed. In the lofty hall outside the cave where all the experts had gathered, they received the updates from the universe gods on the third level who failed. Under the influence of such a formation, they fell in the phantasmagoria of traveling in a dark corridor. They traveled forward by a few hundred years in the dreamland but had yet to reach the end. However, the moment they were in doubt by a slight bit, they would be kicked out of the dreamland immediately. The Almighties exchanged a look and they quickly had an answer. It's a void corridor. The third test is a void corridor that is aiming at one's mind. Humph, the first test was Scattered Stars game to test one's comprehension. The second test was a strength test. The third test is a mental test. This madman Wu Bei is trying to picking his own disciple? Many experts in the hall creased their eyebrows. They knew about the void corridor. It was designated to test one's mind. The void corridor was boundless and unfathomable. When one fell into the void corridor, the exit seemed to be within his sight. But in actual fact, it was unbelievably far away. Forget about traveling forward for a few hundred years, he might not be able to reach the end even after thousands or tens of thousands of years. The void corridor tested if one was firm in their belief. After everyone entered the void corridor, they were certain that the exit was at the end of the corridor. However, when the universe gods had traveled uneventfully over the years but couldn't reach the end, it was inevitable that they started to waver in their belief, but in doubt of their own judgment, they made a mistake. The moment they were in doubt and wavered, the test ended. The universe gods on the open ground who had already woken up traveled for a few hundred years in the void corridor. They were very determined at first. However, as time passed, they started to waver and then were eliminated. Those who were still in the dreamland naturally could stay firm in their belief. On the third level of Wu Bei's cave. As time flew past, there were more universe gods on the open ground who woke up. As everyone had fallen into the dreamland at the same time, the latest to wake up represented the longest time spent in the dreamland. In other words, he was stronger in his belief. Half a day later. Phew. A white-bearded elderly let out a breath of relief and slowly opened his eyes. Universe God Changqing, you woke up too? A man in purple armor next to him looked up and asked. Yeah, I had no choice. It isn't easy to stay determined as one continuous plunge forwards in such a boring and uneventful manner. The white-haired elderly smiled helplessly. How long have you been traveling in the void corridor? The man in purple armor asked. I wrote down my travel time before I started moving forward. It should have been 1,980 years, the white-bearded elderly replied. Chapter 1539 6 People. Chapter 1539 6 People. 1,980 years? The purple-armored man was shocked and he gasped in admiration. I only walked for less than 800 years on that void corridor before being sent out as I could no longer take it. However, you actually walked for over 1,000 years more than me. This is really impressive. The time in a phantasmagoria and in reality was different. The purple-armored man had walked for close to 800 years on the void corridor. However, in reality that was only over 2 hours' time. Before even achieving 2,000 years, I gave up. This is considered nothing. The people who are still in the Phantasmagoria are the ones who are amazing, the white-bearded old man said. Indeed, the purple-armored man also nodded his head and he looked around the area. At the very moment, there was less than 1,000 people who were still in the void corridor and had yet to wake up. These people had probably been walking in the corridor for more than 1,000 years. For 2,000 years, they must continue to stay true to their own objectives and continue walking dutifully. However, this was something that even many real gods could not do. As for the universe gods who were still in the Phantasmagoria, discounting their abilities, they were not weak mentally. In the blink of an eye, another day passed. Originally, there were still over thousands of universe gods remaining on the void corridor. However, this number had been reduced to 40. At that moment, these 40 people had been walking for more than 5,000 years in the black corridor. In the open space, all the universe gods who had awakened were surrounding and observing the remaining 40 people. At that moment, among the 40 people, the eyelids of one of the figures moved and opened his eyes after that. Oh, it's Dongwang. Haha, Dongwang has woken up as well. Although he is the fourth in the universe god ranking list, his mind is not very strong, is it? A number of universe gods who had woken up a long time ago sneered secretly. After Dongwang woke up and got to know the details of the situation, his expression became unusually ugly. Damn it. When solving the Scattered Stars game previously, forget the fact that I was behind over 60 people. However, for this third test, which is a test targeted at the mind, there are actually over 40 people who are above me? How can this be possible? This is impossible. Dongwang was roaring madly inside his own mind and he felt extremely dissatisfied. However, the top experts outside the cave were not surprised by Dongwang's performance in the third test at all. Although Dongwang's abilities are not too bad, his mind is actually not very strong. For him to stay 5,000 years in the void corridor, it is already considered decent. However, it is far from enough to tally with the fact that he is ranked 4th on the universe god ranking list. Ignore Dongwang. I am really very curious about the remaining people. Let's see who will have the last laugh. The experts in the big hall were all waiting in anticipation. Time passed by gradually. Universe gods who could no longer take the dullness of walking for years woke up in succession. Another day passed. Out of the 100,000 universe gods who were at the third level of the cave, there were only 6 people remaining in the void corridor. These 6 people were the god-destroying king, Duan Lingfeng, Jian Wushuang, Jianghu, Tian Can and universe god Xiaohu. There was nothing that could be said about the god-destroying king. His abilities had been recognized as the best. Moreover, his abilities were cultivated from going through massacres for many years. Hence, he had experienced many hardships and killings. With that, he managed to develop an iron-like mind, and such a mind would naturally be in the top few among the universe gods. As for Duan Lingfeng, he was a person who was as cold as ice. Just like Jian Wushuang, he had grown up facing hardships such as countless killings and tragedies. Hence, his willpower was as sturdy as an ice mountain. As soon as he set his mind on something, it would be almost impossible to change it. As for Jian Wushuang, he was an inverse cultivator. Not only had he gone through numerous trainings, he had also experienced 2 inverse cultivation tests. The most noteworthy one was the reincarnation test, which caused his mind to achieve a fantastic level. Among the 3 levels of the mind, he belonged to the first level at the very moment. At the first level, he had managed to understand his own mind and nature clearly. With that, he could make decisions based on these understandings. Such a feat was considered being at the peak of the first level, and he was very close to the second level. When he entered the void corridor, he made up his mind based on his own understandings. After determining that the light was the exit, he would continue walking there without hesitation as he trusted his own mind completely and persistently. As for Jianghu, before Jian Wushuang rose up to his current position, he was recognized as number 1 in consciousness attacks out of the universe gods. Since consciousness was linked to the mind most of the time, he would usually train his mind at the same time as he trained his consciousness. Therefore, his mind was also very strong. As for Tian Can, he was an expert who rose up quickly during the fight for the white blaze fruit at the second level of the cave. Since he got famous from killing people, he was most likely a cold-blooded person. As such, he had a strong mind and would not change his decision easily. These 5 people who were just mentioned above were top experts of the universe god ranking list. Moreover, they were within the top 10 of the universe god ranking list. However, out of the 5 of them, there was still one person remaining. Universe god Xiaohu. Universe god Xiaohu was an ugly-looking middle-aged man. his abilities were normal and he had only reached peak universe god of the third heaven. Disregarding the comparison of him with the experts of the universe god ranking list, even a random top universe god of the third heaven from the open space could push him back easily. He did not have any special abilities as well. Before this test he was a nobody and had no reputation. Moreover, not a single person paid attention to him. However, at the moment in the third test, Universe God Xiaoho, who was an extremely ordinary person, had actually walked with the 5 great experts, namely the God-destroying King, Duan Lingfeng, Jian Wushuang, Xianzhu and Tianzhu, to the very end. At that moment he actually stood side by side with the 5 great experts. This was something that had never crossed anyone's mind. Amidst the vast hall, at the very moment, many almighties and real gods from various big powerhouses had very puzzled expressions. Most of them had lost the right to fight for the white blaze fruit tree. After all, the universe gods under them had been disqualified from the third test. However, the universe gods under some of them were still not disqualified yet. "Ha, it's Xiaoho, it's universe god Xiaoho, whom my water moon pavilion hired." A small, short, black-haired old man laughed wantonly and his laughter reverberated across the big hall. The almighties in the big hall could not help but look toward the black-haired old man. "Hey hun, are you saying that universe god Xiaoho is under the water moon pavilion? How could I have not heard of him before?" A strong man with a tough, stocky build questioned in a low voice. The water moon pavilion and the powerhouse that the man belonged to were both on the same piece of land in one of the sanctuaries. As both powerhouses were competing with each other fiercely, they naturally knew each other inside out. Of course you would not know. Universe god Xiaoho is not a disciple of the water moon pavilion. In order to save his wife who has been poisoned, he looked for the water moon pavilion. He then requested for a real god expert who was proficient in making elixirs to make an elixir to save his wife. However, it's a pity that his abilities were only normal and he also did not have any treasures. As such, he could not exchange anything for the elixir. However, at that time Wu Bei's cave appeared. Hence, that real god of my water moon pavilion decided to try his luck and sent him over. Chapter 1540 108,000 years. Chapter 1540, 108,000 years. I was just casually saying at first. I never thought universe god Xiaoho would really come and that his mental state would so strong that he reached the final stage of the third test. The black-haired elderly from Water Moon Pavilion said excitedly as his eyes shone. The appearance of universe god Xiaoho surprised everyone. As time continued to fly past, Tiankin was the first to come back to reality among the 6 finalists. Tiankin had already tried his best. The longer he stayed in the void corridor, the more difficult it was for him to endure. He had no alternative. Right after Tiankin woke up, it was God-destroying King. God-destroying King, who was the number 1 among the universe gods, surprised many as he only managed to make it to that stage. In the lofty hall, the Almighty sighed with emotion. Because of his backer, God-destroying King receives many resources. After he experienced all kinds of hardship, he became unusually strong and his mental state is terrifying too. However, he has a powerful connection to count on. Hence, his mental state couldn't reach its peak and he couldn't leap over. The third test continued. After Tiankin and God-destroying King woke up, there were only 4 of them left. In the blink of an eye, another 4 hours passed and Xianzhu came back to reality too. Since then, those who continued to travel in the void corridor were Jian Wushuang, Duan Lingfeng and Universe God Xiaoho. Universe God Xiaoho, it's your call. For your wife. You have to persist and not waver. The black-haired elderly from Water Moon Pavilion clenched his fists as he bellowed. Just then he received an update that Universe God Xiaoho had already woken up. He woke up. The black-haired elderly's face immediately grew grave. Then he quickly sighed and seemed to be disappointed. Forget it. I can't make a preemptive request to get the white blaze fruit tree. Plus, Universe God Xiaoho did try his best. Hey hun, it seems that Universe God Xiaoho didn't strive hard enough for you. The brawny man smiled smugly at the failure of his universe god. Humph, Universe God Xiaoho didn't make it to the last in the third test, but he was much more outstanding than the universe god under your command. His wife, we Water Moon Pavilion would still rescue her, the black-haired elderly said in a low voice. Oh. The brawny man's pupils contracted but he didn't say anything further. On the open ground on the 3rd level of the cave, countless universe gods stared at the 2 people with bright, sparkling eyes. The 2 of them were the 2 most eye-catching ones in the third test. They were Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng. How could it be? Why haven't they come out from the dreamland? It has been so long. It has already been 2 days and 2 nights in reality. It must have been even longer in the dreamland. Universe God Xiaoho, you're in 3rd place. How long have you traveled in the void corridor? Someone asked. To be frank, I only kept on walking forward in the void corridor but didn't record the time in detail. It should be around 105,000 years, Universe God Xiaoho replied. 105,000 years. Oh my goodness. In such boring and uneventful travel, you stayed in there for 105,000 years. Is this humane? Universe God Xiaoho stayed for so long. Then aren't Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng spending an even longer time in it? How did they do it? Is their mental strength so strong? The 100,000 universe gods on the open ground were astonished. Even God-destroying King, who was extremely strong, couldn't help but steal a glance at Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng. He was quietly looking at them in admiration. It had been 105,000 years, and they continued to persist. One should know that they had only been plunging forward blindly in the void corridor for 100,000 years. In the blink of an eye, another 4 hours passed. Then Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng reached the 3 days mark in the dreamland. Just then, the 2 people who stood right in the middle of the open ground that everyone was watching suddenly moved. The 2 of them opened their eyes at the same time. They woke up. They finally woke up. Why did the 2 of them wake up at the same time? The surrounding universe gods' facial expressions grew strange. Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng understood and they exchanged a look. It seems like you and I are the same. We both reached the end of the corridor. Jian Wushuang smiled and asked, how many years have you walked in the corridor? 108,000 years. How about you? Duan Lingfeng asked. Same as you, Jian Wushuang smiled. The speed didn't matter when one was traveling in the void corridor. Even if you were plunging forward at the traveling speed beyond a real god, you still had to travel for 108,000 years. But if you were to opt to not plunge forward but slowly walk, you would have to use 108,000 years to reach the end too. The crucial point was that you couldn't waver by any bit within the 108,000 years and you had to endure the boring, uneventful torture. Obviously, Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng had made it. The universe gods surrounding the 2 of them heard their conversation and they gasped in admiration. 108,000 years. Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng walked in the void corridor for 108,000 years. During the 108,000 years, they weren't cultivating but purely plunging forward. They wouldn't run into anything on their way, only a never-ending corridor. The 2 of them had held out to the end. The universe gods also could tell from their conversation that they had reached the end of the corridor and they shook off the dreamland officially to come back to reality. In other words, if there were to be no end to the corridor, they could stay in the dreamland even longer. Just how terrifying were their mental strengths. If I'm not mistaken, Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng should have reached the first stage in terms of mental strength and be at a pretty high level. In the lofty hall, the Almighty started discussing. True. To be able to walk to the end of the void corridor, the lowest threshold is to achieve the first stage of mental state. Most of the real gods has yet to even reach the first stage, but they could reach this stage as universe gods. This is unbelievable. It is much more difficult than comprehending a slight bit of power of heaven way. Both Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng are monstrous. Actually, the first stage of mental state, universe god Xiaoho achieved it too. However, he should have just leapt in not long ago and it has yet to grow solid. Otherwise, he might stand a chance to walk till the end. Regardless, the 3rd test has ended too. It ended, but both Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng passed the test. How will they share the white blaze fruit tree for the 3rd test? Chapter 1541 Jian Wushuang and Real God Wu Bei. Chapter 1541 Jian Wushuang and Real God Wu Bei. In the open space, many universe gods were looking at Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng with puzzled expressions. Both of them had passed the 3rd test. However, there was only one white blaze fruit tree for this test. Hence, how could it be split? I don't really care. The white blaze fruits is useless to me. You can have it, Duan Lingfeng said. How can you do this? Jian Wushuang frowned. The white blaze fruit tree was indeed useless to Duan Lingfeng. However, he could give the white blaze fruit tree to the Almighties as they would definitely be willing to pay a high price for it. There's no changing my mind. If you think that you owe me, then I shall treat it as you owing me a big favor. If I were to ask you for help if I am ever in trouble, it's well alright as long as you don't decline, Duan Lingfeng said. Of course, Jian Wushuang nodded his head immediately. If you, Duan Lingfeng, were to be in trouble in the future, as long as it doesn't go against my intentions, I, Jian Wushuang, will definitely do my best or even put my life on the line to help you. I am contented with this. Duan Lingfeng nodded his head, and it was obvious that he was still uninterested in the white blaze fruit. On this matter, Jian Wushuang could not do anything. In fact, even if there was no white blaze fruit tree, considering his friendship with Duan Lingfeng, if Duan Lingfeng were to ask him for help in the future, he would definitely not decline. The third test has ended. Apart from the two people who managed to win the treasure, everyone else can leave. When real god Wu Bei, who was at the highest point of the cave, waved his big hand, and space passages which led to outside the cave appeared on the void by the side immediately. There were over 100,000 universe gods on the open space. However, although most of them were a bit dissatisfied, they did not feel any attachment to the cave. Hence, they moved their bodies and left. Jian Wushuang, this is my transmission token. If you come across any trouble in the future, you can use this token to contact me. Of course, if I need your help, I will also use this token to contact you. Duan Lingfeng handed a token over to Jian Wushuang. After receiving it, Jian Wushuang nodded his head and laughed. We will see each other again soon. Duan Lingfeng's body moved and he left the cave via the space passage as well. In no time everyone had left. Only Jian Wushuang and the God-destroying king remained. Both of them were the ones who had obtained the final treasure. Jian Wushuang, I applaud you. You have obtained 2 out of the 3 white blaze fruit trees. The God-destroying king stared at Jian Wushuang. Didn't you get 1 white blaze fruit tree as well? Jian Wushuang giggled. The God-destroying king also revealed a smile. Indeed, he had also obtained a white blaze fruit tree, which was enough for him to report the completion of his task to the person backing him. At that moment, the dim shadow of real god Wu Bei, which was at the highest point of the cave, descended in front of the both of them. It's very difficult to move the white blaze fruit tree. Hence, I must do it one by one for the 3 trees. You shall follow me first. Real god Wu Bei shot a glance toward the God-destroying king. Understood. The God-destroying king followed real god Wu Bei to a special space to move the white blaze fruit tree at once. As for Jian Wushuang, he waited quietly. After some time, both of them came out of the special space. The moment they walked out, the God-destroying king's eyes were filled with delight. It was obvious that the tree had been moved successfully. All right, you can leave already, real god Wu Bei said apathetically. The God-destroying king nodded and left via the space passage. In the huge cave, only 2 people remained. They were Jian Wushuang and the dim shadow of real god Wu Bei. At that moment, the 2 of them were facing one another. Real god Wu Bei's shadow also came together gradually and became a black-clothed middle-aged man with an evil-looking forehead. His penetrating eyes stared at Jian Wushuang with lightning speed, and he only started to speak after quite a while. Little kid, you are called Jian Wushuang? During the 3 tests previously, he had got to know Jian Wushuang's name from the other universe gods' discussions. You should know that the reason I purposely let the God-destroying king leave first is so that you will be left here alone, right? Real god Wu Bei's voice was a bit cold. I know, Jian Wushuang nodded his head, because I am the same as you. We are both inverse cultivators. Ha, glad that you know. Real god Wu Bei laughed evilly. The appearance of my cave has attracted many universe gods. However, I didn't expect an inverse cultivator like you to also be within the universe gods. Moreover, if I didn't see wrongly, you should still be the universe god of the second heaven, but you have a special treasure which allows you to conceal your aura. Jian Wushuang possessed a treasure that had been manufactured by the founder of the lineage of Star, and this treasure allowed him to hide his aura and even his soul power. Hence, normal experts and even normal almighties would not be able to see through him. However, real god Wu Bei was also an inverse cultivator and they were inside his cave. As such, he was able to see through Jian Wushuang clearly. Even though you are only a universe god of the second heaven, your abilities have reached such a level. In addition, you are also ranked 3rd on the universe god ranking list. You are even stronger than I was back then when I was in your shoes, real god Wu Bei exclaimed in admiration. He had also grown up step by step, starting from being a weak person himself. He had also experienced the stage of being a universe god. Back then, when he was still a universe god of the second heaven, he could only barely make it into the top 20 of the universe god ranking list at his peak. There was no way for him to get stronger as well. After all, there was a lot of restriction with regards to the unique skills. However, Jian Wushuang was in the top 3 and it was obvious that Jian Wushuang was more outstanding than him. Real God Wu Bei, since you know my identity, you should also be certain that my motive for coming to this cave is not only for the white blaze fruit and its tree, Jian Wushuang said seriously. You wish to get real God level inverse cultivation techniques from me, right? Real God Wu Bei looked at Jian Wushuang with interest. That's right. That's my main objective. Jian Wushuang nodded his head earnestly. Back then, when he came to the Wu Bei's cave, helping the lineage of Star to fight for the white blaze fruit and its tree was his secondary objective. The most important thing was still himself. He needed real God-level inverse cultivation techniques. It was only with the necessary cultivation techniques that he could make a breakthrough and become a real God-level inverse cultivator. Without the cultivation techniques, he would stay at the level of universe gods for the rest of his life. Indeed, I know the real godlike inverse cultivation techniques and I can even give them to you. However, there is a condition, real God Wu Bei said. What condition? Jian Wushuang questioned at once. I want you to help me kill someone, a personal enemy of mine. Real God Wu Bei's eyes turned cold. Your personal enemy? Jian Wushuang's expression changed. Who is your personal enemy and how strong is he? He is the Demon Heart Kingdom's monarch, an almighty who rules many holy kingdoms. Real God Wu Bei said in a low voice. He and I have a huge score to settle. When I was alive, there were numerous times that I wanted to kill him. However, I couldn't do it as his abilities were slightly stronger than mine. Moreover, his background is powerful. Until the day I die, I still haven't managed to find any opportunities. An almighty? Jian Wushuang was shocked. Real God Wu Bei, even when you are at your peak, you are still unable to kill the Demon Heart Kingdom's monarch. Yet you want me, a universe god, to kill him? Chapter 1542 Superior? Chapter 1542, Superior? Why are you anxious? I'm not asking you to kill him now but later on when you enhance your power and have the capability to. Real God Wu Bei stole a glance at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang let out a breath of relief and immediately replied solemnly, Real God Wu Bei, I can promise you that I will figure out a way to kill Demon Heart Kingdom Monarch on your behalf as soon as I have the ability to. If I were to not reach that level ever, you couldn't blame me. Don't worry. If you were to never reach that kind of level or if you passed away, I naturally couldn't pin the blame on you. Plus, at your current level, you are really far off that level. Forget about the other factors. It is still unknown whether you can become real God successfully. After all, you have one last inverse cultivation test to go through. Real God Wu Bei sighed. The last inverse cultivation test is the toughest test as an inverse cultivator. Although you are quite powerful, the possibility of you passing the test is still not high. Jian Wushuang's pupils contracted as he heard that remark. Real God Wu Bei, you're an inverse cultivator at the stage of real God. In other words, it meant that you passed through all 3 inverse cultivation tests. Can you tell me what the last inverse cultivation test about? Jian Wushuang asked. Inverse cultivation test, the toughest test for an inverse cultivator. The previous 2 inverse cultivation tests that Jian Wushuang had been through had brought him to the brink of death. Naturally, for the 3rd inverse cultivation test, the toughest test, Jian Wushuang was worried himself. I can't tell what the 3rd inverse cultivation test is exactly. But the moment I expose the inverse cultivation test, it will become entirely different, Real God Wu Bei explained. However, I can tell you that when it comes to my 3rd inverse cultivation test, everything that I went through still strikes fear in me now. Plus, because of the inverse cultivation test, it caused a drastic change in my temperament. Hence, the people in eternal chaotic world treat me as a madman. Jian Wushuang's eyebrows were tightly knitted. The 3rd inverse cultivation test had made Real God Wu Bei so terrified and his temperament underwent a drastic change. Just how scary was the test? Jian Wushuang muttered. Real God Wu Bei didn't explain much but extended his hand and took out a gray stone bead. Huh. Jian Wushuang looked and his gaze instantly fixed onto the gray stone bead. He wasn't unfamiliar with the gray stone bead. When he had received the heavenly creation skill previously, it was contained in the gray stone bead. Jian Wushuang had yet to find out what material the stone bead was made out of. The inverse cultivation skill of real God level, also the 6th step of inverse cultivation, is stored in the stone bead. Real God Wu Bei smiled and passed the gray stone bead to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang took the gray stone bead and swept his soul power over it. He was delighted. The 6th step of cultivation strength. Jian Wushuang's eyes were twinkling with joy. I only have the 6th step of cultivation strength. I cultivated to the extreme limit of a real god with this skill when I was alive. However, as I couldn't get my hands on the seventh step of cultivation strength, which is the one that equals the skill of an almighty, I have trapped it there. I didn't even break through when I died, real God Wu Bei sighed. Even real God Wu Bei couldn't find the seventh step of cultivation strength? Could it be that the seventh step of cultivation strength never existed? Jian Wushuang frowned. That's not it. I know who carries the seventh step of cultivation strength, but that person. He's too aloof. Forget about me, many almighties who are much stronger than I am aren't even qualified to see him. I naturally don't stand a chance. I don't even have the chance to get in touch with him. How can I ask him to pass me that skill? Real God Wu Bei smiled bitterly. Is that so? Jian Wushuang nodded in silence. Jian Wushuang, if you were to reach the level I was at before I died one day, you could ask any almighty who is stronger. Any almighty who is strong will know who has the seventh step of cultivation strength, real God Wu Bei asked. I understand, Jian Wushuang understood. Then real God Wu Bei flipped his palm and two dark, mysterious rings appeared in his hand. Senior Wu Bei, what's this? Jian Wushuang looked at the two rings suspiciously. These two rings contain a white blaze fruit tree each. I gave God-destroying King one just now for him to leave first. Hence I did some tricks, real God Wu Bei said. A white blaze fruit trees in these two rings? How is it possible? Jian Wushuang was amazed. He could tell that the black rings should be Qiankuan rings. Although there was storage space in a Qiankuan ring, it was used to keep various kinds of treasures. However, treasures were treasures, they were dead objects. But white ablaze fruit tree was a true living thing. It possessed life force. In eternal chaotic world, whatever life force such as human cultivators, exotic beasts, they were alive, how could they be kept in Qiankuan ring? Even the natural treasures had to be plucked and cut off from their life force before storing them in Qiankuan ring. But then the two Qiankuan ring. What? You find it unbelievable, right? Real God Wu Bei looked at him with a smile. When I first received these few rings, I was astonished too. However, such a Qiankuan ring existed and it was made by a superior personally, back when the almighties were fighting over the white blaze fruit tree and had an insane fight. The reason they couldn't call the match was that the procedure was very complicated to maintain the white blaze fruit tree's life force when they wanted to transplant it. But it was different for me. I took the entire plot of land that cultivated the sapling of white blaze fruit into the ring while the almighties could only watch me. No wonder real God Wu Bei, you can take away the sapling of white blaze fruit so openly before the almighties. This is why, huh? Jian Wushuang complimented and then asked, you said that these few rings were made by a superior. Would this superior be the one that helped you nurture the other two white blaze fruit trees? Yes, it's him. Actually, not only the ring and the nurturing of white blaze fruit tree, even the restriction in my cave is set up by him. Because of the existence of the restriction, the almighties outside can't enter, real God Wu Bei smiled. Even the restriction is set up by the superior? Who exactly is this superior? Jian Wushuang asked curiously. I don't know his exact identity, nor do I know his actual power. I only know that he is very good at making weapons, formation and many realm techniques. Even many almighties who specialized in weapon making and formation couldn't be compared to him favorably. He is definitely one of the most mysterious people I've seen all my life, real God Wu Bei said. Jian Wushuang was stunned when he heard it. Chapter 1543, The Arrival of the Palace Master. Chapter 1543, The Arrival of the Palace Master. He was exceptionally talented in manufacturing weapons and using spells of many realms. Moreover, he was also very mysterious. This caused Jian Wushuang to think of his own master, Xian Yi, instantly. Similarly, his master's background was extremely mysterious. Moreover, his master was also very proficient in manufacturing weapons, using spells as well as in many other areas. He was very similar to the great person real God Wu Bei mentioned. Could it be master? Jian Wushuang frowned. However, he was unable to confirm it. Might just be a coincidence. However, it might also be him. If the great person who real God Wu Bei had mentioned were really his master Xian Yi, then he would indeed be extremely mysterious. No matter what, I have no way of finding out if that person is my master. Jian Wushuang shook his head and stopped thinking about it. I have given you all the things that you wanted. Remember our agreement. When you have the ability, please help me to kill the Demon Heart Kingdom's monarch. Now please go. Real God Wu Bei said. Jian Wushuang's eyes squinted and he glanced at real God Wu Bei deeply. After that, he gave a bow and entered the space passage which led to the outside world. With Jian Wushuang leaving, only real God Wu Bei was left in the big cave. As real God Wu Bei stood in his position, he raised his eyes and looked up at the heavens. Ha ha. All of a sudden, an insane laugh could be heard from real God Wu Bei, and it shook the universe. Old bastard, I have done what you wanted me to do. Hence I, Wu Bei, no longer owe you anything. Ha ha. A mad laugh resounded within the whole cave, and the enormous cave also started to shake with laughter. At the next moment, the whole cave started to collapse. As for real God Wu Bei, who was in the cave, he was completely swallowed by the collapsed cave and his figure dissipated slowly. Outside Wu Bei's cave, the vast hall was still floating in the sky of the island. Inside the big hall, many experts had gathered. However, at that very moment, the eyes of the experts were focused on Lei Chao. 2 white blaze fruit trees had been obtained by that little kid from the lineage of Star. Where did the insane luck of the lineage of Star come from? With so many experts as well as a few almighties staring at him, even Lei Chao felt fearful. However, at that moment, swish, another shadow appeared out of thin air from within the big hall. It was a silvery, white-haired old man. His face was old and his aura was very normal. Hence he looked like an ordinary old man. However, when this old man appeared, many experts in the vast hall went silent immediately. The eyes of the almighties also focused on the old man at once. As for Lei Chao, who had felt a bit fearful moments ago, he became delighted when the old man arrived. Palace Master. Lei Chao appeared in front of the silvery white-haired old man immediately and greeted him respectfully. It's the founder of the lineage of Star. The Star's old monster. This old bastard actually came personally. A number of almighties frowned. However, they also knew that Jian Wushuang had obtained 2 white blaze fruit trees from Wu Bei's cave. Since this was such a big matter, it would naturally cause the founder of the lineage of Star to be alarmed. Therefore, the founder of the lineage of Star ought to come personally. You may stand up. The silvery white-haired old man who was the Star Palace Master glanced at Lei Chao and questioned him at the same time. Where's the little kid from my lineage of Star? He is still inside Wu Bei's cave and is about to come out soon, Lei Chao said immediately. Okay. The Star Palace Master nodded. After that, he looked toward the almighties who were at the front of the big hall. Ah. Long time no see, Star old monster. A hearty laugh came from the center of the big hall from the red-haired old man who had a horn on his forehead. Quite a number of almighties beside him stood up as well. However, apart from the red-haired old man, when the other almighties looked at the Star Palace Master, it was obvious that they were looking at him with respect. Similar to universe gods and real gods, there were weak and strong almighties. There were 20 almighties present, and this was considered a lot. However, among them, only the red-haired old man could compete with the Star Palace Master. As for the other almighties, such as the owner of the Sky Sword Mountain and Tower Master Chi-Fu, they were weaker than the Star Palace Master. Huoyu, you're here as well? The Star Palace Master looked at the red-haired old man. I just happened to be in the Red Dragon Sanctuary during this period of time. After I knew about the appearance of Wu Bei's cave, I hurried over to take a look. The red-haired old man Huoyu giggled. Star, come and take a seat. With a wave of Huoyu's hand, a long narrow table appeared beside him immediately. The Star Palace Master did not stand on ceremony. With a flash of his body, he appeared in front of the long narrow table and sat down straight away. Star, that little kid from your lineage of Star has indeed brought you credit. With so many universe gods fighting for the 3 white blaze fruit trees, he still managed to obtain 2 of them in the end. We are all really envious of you, Huoyu gasped in admiration. This little kid's luck is indeed not too bad. However, as he had obtained 2 white blaze fruit trees, there's no avoiding the attention of people with hidden agendas. Hence, I have to rush over personally to bring him back, the Star Palace Master said nonchalantly. As soon as his words left his mouth, the expressions of quite a number of almighties in the area changed slightly. Before this, there were indeed some people among the almighties who had had their eyes set on Jian Wushuang. After all, 2 white blaze fruit trees were extremely attractive. However, at the very moment with the arrival of the Star Palace Master, those people had dropped the idea at once. They had no guts to snatch items away from the Star Palace Master. Moreover, they did not have the ability to do so either. Ah, don't be so blunt. As long as everyone understands, Huoyu chuckled, oh right, that little kid of your lineage of Star should be coming out of the cave soon. Understood, the Star Palace Master nodded his head. With a flash of thought in his mind, An invisible seal appeared beside him and Huoyu immediately. The invisible seal was merely a technique used to prevent others from hearing their conversation. Star, could it be that you wish to tell me something? Such that you have placed a protective screen on the time and space around us? Huoyu looked toward the Star Palace Master with surprise. Indeed, I need your help with something, the Star Palace Master spoke. What's wrong? Huoyu questioned. When the little kid of my lineage of Star comes out, no matter what you see from him, please don't mention anything, the Star Palace Master said. Oh. Huoyu raised his eyebrows. Could it be that the little kid has some sort of secret? Please just tell me whether you agree to it or not, the Star Palace Master said. Ah. After hearing such things from you, I am now very curious about that little kid. Don't worry, since you have asked me personally, I will naturally not decline. No matter what I manage to see later, I will not say anything, Huoyu laughed. Chapter 1544 Deal. Chapter 1544, Deal. The experts in the hall were still waiting. However, as the Star Palace Master came personally, there was no one who dared to plot against Jian Wushuang anymore. Very soon Jian Wushuang came out from the cave. On the island, at the entrance of Wu Bei's cave, Jian Wushuang leapt out along with a flash of light. Just as he leapt out of the cave, the entrance behind him immediately shook and collapsed entirely. Wu Bei's cave then vanished into thin air. Jian Wushuang only shook his head in silence when he saw what happened. Jian Wushuang. Lei Chao instantly sent him a message. Did you see the palace above you? Hurry up and come over. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate but plunged towards the palace and appeared in the lofty hall. Once Jian Wushuang had appeared in the lofty hall, he instantly felt the bold, vigorous auras in the hall. Every single aura was terrifyingly strong, especially those seated in the higher areas in the hall. The casually spread aura was already suffocating him. These people, Jian Wushuang looked at the people around him and he felt dreadful. He knew clearly that anyone at the scene could kill him easily. These people were looking him up and down too. That made Jian Wushuang even more horrified. Jian Wushuang, hurry. Come in, Great Palace Master, Lei Chao's voice was heard. Palace Master? Jian Wushuang was stunned and followed Lei Chao's guidance. He immediately looked at the white-haired elderly in the middle of the hall. Greetings, Palace Master. Jian Wushuang immediately bowed and let out a breath of relief from the bottom of his heart. It turned out that Palace Master came personally. I guess I don't have to worry much. Get up. Star Palace Master waved and Jian Wushuang stood up. The fiery-haired elderly next to Star Palace Master, Huoyu, looked at Jian Wushuang with a strange look in his eyes. This aura. Universe God in the second heaven? Huoyu was surprised but he instantly understood. Haha, old monster of Star Palace, I finally know this young man's secret. Haha. Huoyu laughed heartily. However, due to the restriction of the surrounding void, the people around them, including the Almighties, didn't know what he was talking about. Huoyu was one who was on equal footing as the Star Palace Master. The treasure that the Star Palace Master had made personally could conceal Jian Wushuang's aura from everyone else at the scene, including the Almighties, but not him. He definitely could tell Jian Wushuang's ins and outs then. He could tell that Jian Wushuang was merely a universe god in the second heaven, but people treated him as universe god in the third heaven because of a treasure on him that concealed his aura. As a universe god in the second heaven, he was so powerful and he was in the top 3 on the universe god ranking list. No ordinary cultivator would be able to do that. There was only one kind of person who can do that. An inverse cultivator. An inverse cultivator like real god Wu Bei. Huoyu was certain that Jian Wushuang was an inverse cultivator. Huoyu, do you remember what you promised me earlier? Star Palace Master glanced at Huoyu. Of course I do, Huoyu smiled. 4 white blaze fruits and I will keep this young man from Lineage of Stars secret. I'll never leak his identity as an inverse cultivator to anyone in the future. How about that? 4. Star Palace Master squinted his eyes. You're good at taking advantage, huh? Haha, it's only 4 white blaze fruits. Jian Wushuang got 9 of them in the cave and also 2 white blaze fruit trees. With the 2 white blaze fruit trees, you can have however many white blaze fruits you want. What are 4 pieces to you? Huoyu laughed. The Star Palace Master was on friendly terms with him, but that didn't change the fact that he took advantage of the Star Palace Master. Plus, 4 pieces of white blaze fruits were really nothing much from the harvest that Jian Wushuang had got from Wu Bei's cave. 4 pieces of white blaze fruits, deal? The Star Palace Master agreed directly. Great, Huoyu's smile grew even wider. The people in the surroundings could see Huoyu talking to Star Palace Master and they seemed to reach a mutual agreement, but they didn't know the context of their agreement. Jian Wushuang, pass me the white blaze fruit trees. Star Palace Master looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate and immediately took out the 2 special rings that he had gotten from Wu Bei's cave. He looked at the 2 rings and the surrounding experts, including the Almighties. There was a glimpse of heat in their eyes, but they pressed it down forcefully. The rings are quite interesting. I wonder how Wu Bei got them. Star Palace Master briefly glanced at the rings and pocketed them. Pass me the 4 pieces of white blaze fruits that you got from Wu Bei's cave, Star Palace Master said again. Jian Wushuang immediately took out 4 pieces of white blaze fruit. Star Palace Master passed the 4 pieces of white blaze fruits to Huoyu. Jian Wushuang, do you have any other matter to deal with? If not, follow me back to Lineage of Star. Star Palace Master looked at him. Palace Master, please hold on for a while, Jian Wushuang replied and came before an Almighty before everyone's watch. The Almighty was naturally the owner of Sky Sword Mountain. Senior Sky Sword, previously you told Mr. Lei Chao to send me a message. I wonder, does it still count? Jian Wushuang asked politely. Of course it counts, the owner of Sky Sword Mountain smiled. When the fight is over, I said that as long as you offered me 2 white blaze fruits, you who I once imprisoned in Sky Sword Prison, could release anyone you wished. Here are 2 pieces of white blaze fruits. I'd like Senior Sky Sword to release Fiery King from Sky Sword Prison. Let him be free. Jian Wushuang took out 2 white blaze fruits. Haha, no problem. When I return, I shall release him immediately without any delay. The owner of Sky Sword Mountain was delighted. Please tell him to send me a message when he gets released, Jian Wushuang said as he let out a breath of relief. Fiery King, also the founder of Lineage of Scarlet. The secret skill of Scarlet Kingdom was created by Fiery King himself. Previously when he was imprisoned in Sky Sword Prison, Fiery King took good care of him and Jian Wushuang was grateful. He wanted to rescue Fiery King. Then he had finally made the owner of Sky Sword Mountain release Fiery King. He considered himself to be removing a thorn in his heart. 2 pieces of white blaze fruit in exchange for the freedom of a first-stage real god. Sky Sword, you made quite a good deal. Star Palace Master glanced at the owner of Sky Sword Mountain. The owner of Sky Sword Mountain smiled awkwardly. However, Star Palace Master didn't worry much about him and left with Jian Wushuang and Lei Chao soon after. Chapter 1545, Things Have Settled Down. Chapter 1545, Things Have Settled Down. It had ended. The crazy fight that was participated in by many top universe gods in the eternal chaotic world had finally come to an end. Many universe gods who had participated in the fight left with sadness. During the crazy fight, some people had died without experiencing anything big while some people had trampled on the bodies of others and got a reputation for themselves. During this fight, Jian Wushuang was one of the most dazzling figures. In particular, Jian Wushuang had obtained 2 white blaze fruit trees and 9 white blaze fruits alone. This has allowed the Lineage of Star to become the biggest winner of the fight this time around. His name had also reverberated across the whole eternal chaotic world again. Inside an old cave within the Lineage of Star, Jian Wushuang, Hall Master Yuan and Lei Chao were standing in front of the Star Palace Master respectfully. Palace Master, I have already opened up a standalone star in the endless Milky Way. Moreover, I have already started to set up a spell. As soon as the spell is complete, we can nurture the 2 white blaze fruit trees. As for the resources needed to nurture the trees, we have already prepared quite a decent amount, Hall Master Yuan said. We only need to nurture 1 white blaze fruit tree, the Star Palace Master said. Hall Master Yuan and Jian Wushuang became stupefied. The white blaze fruit tree is extremely precious. Just 1 tree alone is enough to make many Almighties go crazy. Although the Lineage of Star is one of the big powerhouses of the eternal chaotic world, we are not strong enough to have 2 trees at the same time. Hence, I have decided to give the other tree to the Emperor, the Star Palace Master said. The Emperor? Hall Master Yuan was stunned. After that, he nodded his head. As for Jian Wushuang, he had a puzzled expression. Jian Wushuang, the Emperor whom the Star Palace mentioned should be the Purple Moon Emperor of the Purple Moon Sanctuary, the King of Venomous Worms' voice echoed in Jian Wushuang's head. As the King of Venomous Worms only grew inside Jian Wushuang's ancient god body, his existence was not known even to the Star Palace Master. The Purple Moon Emperor is equivalent to the Master of the Purple Moon Sanctuary. He is a super expert who stands at the top of the Almighties in the eternal chaotic world. Moreover, he is a lot stronger than the Star Palace Master as well as the Almighties that you saw previously. The Star Palace Master is really smart. He knew that with the lineage of stars abilities alone, it would be very difficult to possess 2 white blaze fruit trees. By giving one of them to the Purple Moon Emperor, the lineage of star would gain the support of the Purple Moon Emperor. Hence, no one would dare to set eyes on the white blaze fruit tree in the lineage of star. Is that so? Jian Wushuang nodded his head. The Purple Moon Emperor? Jian Wushuang also took note of the name. Jian Wushuang. All of a sudden, the Star Palace Master looked at Jian Wushuang. It is all thanks to your abilities this time around that the lineage of star is able to obtain these 2 white blaze fruit trees, as well as a few white blaze fruits. The lineage of star is fair in meting out rewards and punishments. Since you have achieved a great feat for the lineage of star, I will naturally give you an award. Although this reward cannot be compared to the value of the 2 white blaze fruit trees, it will still be of use to you. How about this? If you need any treasures or resources, tell Hall Master Yuan later so that he will prepare them for you. In addition, I will allow you to enter the Real God Hall every 100 years. Moreover, you can stay inside for 1 year for every entry until you become a real god. After hearing what was said, Jian Wushuang's eyes brightened up. The Real God Hall was the most precious training resource of the lineage of star and it was extremely useful to universe gods. However, it was not easy to open the Real God Hall as every opening would require a huge price to be paid. Hence, in the lineage of star, even if it were the Star Palace disciples, it was not easy for them to enter the Real God Hall for comprehension. For example, when Jian Wushuang had risked his life to complete the ultimate disciple task previously, his total award had only amounted to 3 months in the Real God Hall. But what about that very moment? He could enter the Real God Hall every 100 years. Moreover, he could stay for a year for each entry. What great treatment was that? Jian Wushuang, your talents knows no limit and there might be some hope for you to become another almighty of the lineage of star in the future. Thus, the lineage of star will do its utmost best to help you grow. However, before this there will still be a long journey ahead of you. The more noteworthy one is at the very moment. Your inverse cultivation test for the 3rd heaven should be quite close to you. The Star Palace Master looked at Jian Wushuang. If you clear this final inverse cultivation test for the last heaven, you will rise to the top at one go. However, if you were to fail, there would be no more hope for you forever. Remember, you must be extremely careful. Understood. Jian Wushuang nodded his head seriously. He himself was very clear that the inverse cultivation test for the 3rd heaven was his final test, as well as one of his greatest obstacles. This obstacle was extremely important. You may leave now, the Star Palace Master waved his hands. At once, Jian Wushuang, Hall Master Yuan and Lei Chao bowed and left. After leaving the cave, the 3 of them stood in the endless Milky Way. Jian Wushuang, I have passed the Palace Master's words down. From now on, you can enter the Real God Hall once every 100 years. Moreover, if you need any resources or treasures, you can tell me directly and I will do my best to help you get them, Hall Master Yuan said. Understood, thank you very much, Hall Master Yuan, Jian Wushuang laughed. No need to stand on ceremony. By the way, did you get what you wanted from Wu Bei's cave? Hall Master Yuan looked at Jian Wushuang. What he was asking about was naturally the method of the inverse cultivator's 6th step. I got it. Jian Wushuang giggled. That's good. Continue your training. Tell me when the inverse cultivation test for the 3rd heaven is here so that I can help you to prepare, Hall Master Yuan said. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. After that, he headed to his own sword star. At the sword star. Qiu, this Chen ring has quite a few training resources. Please share it with your sisters. For the next period of time, I will probably be staying in the lineage of star. If you have questions that you don't understand, you can come and ask me. Jian Wushuang was looking at the maids who were below him. Thank you very much. Qiu and the maids were all extremely delighted. As the Sword Star Master, Jian Wushuang treated the maids under him quite well. He would help if he could. Moreover, he would give them some training resources occasionally. For Jian Wushuang, the training resources that he gave randomly were enough to cause Qiu and the rest of the maids to be over the moon. Inside a secret room, Jian Wushuang was sitting down alone with his legs crossed. From the journey to Wu Bei's cave this time round, I have benefited greatly. In addition, my soul power has risen greatly as well. For the abilities of a universe god of the second heaven like me to reach such a level is already very impressive. If I wish to continue getting stronger, I can only improve my comprehension toward the heaven's way at best. Jian Wushuang was quite helpless as well. In the end, he was only a universe god of the second heaven. Hence, his abilities were restricted. I wonder when the inverse cultivation test for the third heaven will come. Will it be soon? Chapter 1546, There's News. Chapter 1546, There's News. Jian Wushuang stayed in lineage of star since then. He never paid attention in cultivation as his power had reached a bottleneck. The only thing he could do was improve his comprehension towards reincarnation doctrine and spacetime doctrine. However, such comprehension didn't require him to cultivate in seclusion, but natural comprehension in a relaxed state would have a better effect. Jian Wushuang stayed in Sword Star and drank with Ling Feibai, Longya and a few others occasionally. Sometimes he would give pointers to Qiu Yu and the other maidservants regarding cultivation. Every 100 years he would visit Real God Hall and he would stay in there for a year. The time flew past. It had been 1,800 years in the blink of an eye. In the 1,800 years, Jian Wushuang lived at ease. In the 1,800 years he stayed in lineage of star and never left. Real God Hall. The entrance suddenly opened and Jian Wushuang, who had comprehended in it for a year, slowly exited. After he exited Real God Hall, Jian Wushuang let out a heavy sigh. As expected, ever since my comprehension towards spacetime doctrine reached the standard of passing the first level of Doctrine Palace, my comprehension towards the power of Heaven Way has stopped entirely. Even after I comprehended in Real God Hall for a year, there wasn't much improvement. Jian Wushuang felt helpless. He knew since long ago that with his improvement in comprehension, his speed of improvement was as slow as a snail, even with the assistance of Real God Hall. 100 years ago, also 100,700 years after he had come back from Wu Bei's cave, his comprehension towards spacetime doctrine already reached the standard of the first level of Doctrine Palace. After reaching that standard, he had no space for improvement in terms of comprehension towards power of Heaven Way. For the past century, there was no improvement in both reincarnation doctrine and spacetime doctrine. I'm still restricted by my realms as universe god in the second heaven, Jian Wushuang sighed emotionally. In his current state, he had even reached the limit of unique skill that his realm could be at. It was the same in terms of soul strength. Then, even his comprehension towards power of Heaven Way had reached the limit of a universe god in the second heaven. In other words, unless he passed his third inverse cultivation test and become a universe god in the third heaven, he wouldn't improve at all in terms of his power. Many years passed but the third inverse cultivation test never came. There weren't even any signs of it coming. Regarding that, Jian Wushuang was rather helpless too. He could only sit and wait patiently. Lineage of Star, in the rolling palaces, Jian Wushuang was walking alone slowly. On the way he met many disciples of Lineage of Star. The disciples were discussing him quietly as they looked at him with admiration. One should know that for the past 1,800 years, the brand new universe god ranking list and the incident in Wu Bei's cave had spread like wildfire. As the most eye-catching person in Wu Bei's cave and the third ranked on universe god ranking list, Jian Wushuang was naturally the disciples' role model. There were even many disciples of Lineage of Star who treated Jian Wushuang as the pride of Lineage of Star. After all, ever since Star Palace Master had started Lineage of Star, Jian Wushuang had been the first to get listed in the top 3 on universe god ranking list. But what they didn't know was that he was deeply distressed that his third inverse cultivation test had yet to come. Just then there was a message that popped in. "Mr. the person that you asked Vientiane Tower to look for, we found a clue." Jian Wushuang's footstep paused and there was a glimpse of light in his eyes. Finally there's news. Jian Wushuang couldn't help but clench his fists. 2,000 years ago, since he had been released from Sky Sword Prison, he found Vientiane Tower and entrusted them to look for his wife for him for a price of 10 million Chaos Gem. Vientiane Tower promised that they would reply to him within 3,000 years. But then, it had been 2,000 over years and Vientiane Tower really did give him an answer. On Star Land, in a secret room in the Vientiane Tower branch where Jian Wushuang had requested the task. "Mr. According to your criteria, Vientiane Tower went through 2,000 years of searches and finally found one person. It is extremely likely that she is the primordial great sinner that you are looking for." A purple-haired elderly stood before Jian Wushuang as he said. "Extremely likely? In other words, it's not certain?" Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. It's hard to be certain. After all, her behavior is creepy and she won't reveal herself, nor did she fight with anyone. Vientiane Tower only found her through multiple indications. We are definite that she is a primordial great sinner and she is a woman. On top of that, she only appeared in eternal chaotic world within the last 10,000 years. With these three indications, although Vientiane Tower isn't 100% sure that she is the person you're looking for, we are at least 70% confident, the purple-haired elderly said. Jian Wushuang's pupils contracted. A primordial great sinner, a woman, and she had only appeared in eternal chaotic world in the past 10,000 years. The three signs did match his wife Lung Wushuang. It must be her. Jian Wushuang grew emotional and he immediately asked, "Where is she now?" According to the news that Vientiane Tower received, she is currently in Blood Demon Church in Gong Holy Kingdom and she seems to hold a high position in Blood Demon Church, the purple-haired elderly replied. Blood Demon Church? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. The name Blood Demon Church itself indicated that it wasn't any kind sect. Blood Demon Church in Gong Holy Kingdom belonged to a strong force. They seem to have quite a few real gods too, the purple-haired elderly smiled. In a holy kingdom, means that it is outside of 10 cultivation sanctuaries? Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. Soon after he left Vientiane Tower, he returned to Lineage of Star. When he arrived at Lineage of Star, he went to see Hall Master Yuan immediately. In the cave made of unique gemstones. Jian Wushuang, it's rare that you come to see me. Could it be that your third inverse cultivation test is coming? Or did you reach a bottleneck in your cultivation and you need me to prepare some cultivation resources for you? Hall Master Yuan looked at Jian Wushuang attentively. The third inverse cultivation test never came, not even a sign. As for cultivation resources, I don't need them as of now. I came here today to ask Hall Master Yuan for a favor, Jian Wushuang said. Oh. Hall Master Yuan raised his eyebrows. He knew that Jian Wushuang's character was proud and aloof. If it was something he could do himself, he definitely wouldn't ask for the others' assistance. But then Jian Wushuang found him. He definitely ran into trouble that he couldn't resolve on his own. Tell me, what do you need me to do for you? Hall Master Yuan looked at him. Chapter 1547 Real God Gong. Chapter 1547 Real God Gong. I wish for Hall Master Yuan to send some of the Lineage of Stars real gods to help me go to a powerhouse and capture someone alive, Jian Wushuang said. Capture someone alive? Hall Master Yuan was surprised. That's right, Jian Wushuang nodded his head. The body of his wife Lung Wushuang was currently being controlled by Lung Wuxia. Moreover, Lung Wuxia was a consciousness that was given birth by the extremely evil primordial great sin. If he wished to rescue Lung Wushuang, he would need to first capture Lung Wuxia alive. After that, he would request Hall Master Yuan's help. With an Almighty's power, it might be possible to suppress Lung Wuxia and awaken his wife's, Lung Wushuang's consciousness. Hall Master Yuan laughed indifferently and asked, which sanctuary and which sect? That powerhouse is not within the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. Instead, it is at the Gong Holy Kingdom. It is also said that a few real gods exist there, Jian Wushuang said. The Gong Holy Kingdom? Hall Master Yuan frowned all of a sudden. Hall Master Yuan, is it troublesome? When Jian Wushuang noticed a change in Hall Master Yuan's expression, he could not help but ask. It is indeed troublesome. Truthfully, it is very troublesome. Hall Master Yuan's voice became low. Jian Wushuang, if the person who you wish to capture alive is in another holy kingdom, it would be all right even though they are ruled by the Almighties. With the power that the Lineage of Star possesses, we could send experts straight away. For example, we can send Lei Chao over and help you to capture the person alive. Even though this is done, the Almighty in charge of the Holy Kingdom would not look for us over such a small matter. However, the person who you wish to capture alive now is within the Gong Holy Kingdom, and the Gong Holy Kingdom is different from the other holy kingdoms. How so? Jian Wushuang frowned. The Lineage of Star did not have to worry about the holy kingdoms controlled by Almighties. However, why was Hall Master Yuan so concerned about the Gong Holy Kingdom? Jian Wushuang, let me tell you the truth. The monarch of Gong Holy Kingdom is a real god with abilities to stand at the top. He is real god Gong, and just like Lei Chao, he is also in the real god ranking list. Moreover, he is ranked 5th in the real god ranking list. Hall Master Yuan said. 5th in the real god ranking list? Jian Wushuang was shocked. The real god ranking list and the universe god ranking list were quite similar in nature. For one to get into the real god ranking list, he would definitely need to be in the top few among the real gods. As for real god Gong, for him to be ranked 5th in the real god ranking list, his abilities are probably very close to an almighty's. Not only is real god Gong powerful, his way of doing things is also very unreasonable. Moreover, the most important thing is that there was once a huge incident between him and the lineage of Star, Hall Master Yuan said. What? Jian Wushuang was stunned. Real god Gong actually had a grudge against the lineage of Star. Jian Wushuang, do you remember Ling Dan, the person who I sent you over to defeat at the Green Lightning sect? Hall Master Yuan said. Of course I remember, Jian Wushuang nodded his head. He still remembered Ling Dan slightly. After all, it was a match that made him famous. He had defeated Ling Dan with one stroke and later on he had pushed back the 7-planet palace master. With that, he had become famous and got into the 20th position of the universe god ranking list. Back then Ling Dan had intentionally provoked the lineage of Star. If not for you appearing and defeating him, the lineage of Star would definitely have lost its prestige. After that, I intentionally sent people to investigate him in detail. After the investigation, I realized that there were some dealings between Ling Dan and real god Gong. It seemed that real god Gong had promised to make him his disciple if he could make the lineage of Star lose its prestige. Hall Master Yuan said. This kind of thing actually happened? Jian Wushuang understood. It was no wonder that Ling Dan was so unwise back then where he had challenged the prestige of the lineage of Star. It was all due to real god Gong's promise. Back then, real god Gong was forced out of the Purple Moon Sanctuary by the lineage of Star. For many years, he dared not even take a single step into the Purple Moon Sanctuary. As for the Holy Kingdom that he controls, the experts in the lineage of Star naturally don't dare to go there. If they were to go to his Holy Kingdom and be discovered by him, he would definitely not hesitate to take action to kill the real gods of the lineage of Star, Hall Master Yuan said. Is that so? Jian Wushuang frowned. At that very moment, Lung Wuxia was in the Blood Demon Church within Jianghu Holy Kingdom. Apart from there being a few real gods in the Blood Demon Church, some of them also possess strong abilities. Hence, there would be no hope for him to charge into the Blood Demon Church and rescue Lung Wuxia alive. As such, he had to rely on the lineage of Star. However, he did not expect Jianghu Holy Kingdom to be controlled by real god Gong. Jian Wushuang, it is not good to provoke real god Gong. Moreover, the Jianghu Holy Kingdom is his territory and he would definitely know of any disturbances in his own territory. Hence, the real god experts of the lineage of Star absolutely cannot go there as it would be sending themselves to their own deaths. This applies to you as well. Although you are a universe god and that he might not kill you due to his identity, he can still order the experts under him to kill you. In any case, if you were to go there, you would face very high risks as well. Thus, you had better not go as there is really no choice. However, you can still get someone to go on behalf of you to capture the person, Hall Master Yuan said. No, I have to go to the Jianghu Holy Kingdom personally as that person is extremely important to me, Jian Wushuang said with a low voice. Extremely important? Hall Master Yuan frowned. Hall Master Yuan, there are some things that are inconvenient for me to tell you. However, I really have to go to the Jianghu Holy Kingdom, Jian Wushuang said. Hall Master Yuan started to mutter to himself at once. After some time he looked at Jian Wushuang again. Jian Wushuang, it's alright if you really need to go there. I will use the resources of the lineage of Star to hire a few experts who will travel along with you to help you. Although the real gods of the lineage of Star are unable to enter Jianghu Holy Kingdom, we can still hire people secretly and real god Gong won't know about it. However, you must promise me something. After reaching Jianghu Holy Kingdom, you have to think of a way to hide your identity properly. Secondly, do not take action personally. You can get the experts that I have hired for you to do the work. Understood. Jian Wushuang's eyes brightened and he spoke immediately. Since that's the case, I will make a move to Jianghu Holy Kingdom first. I have to first clarify if that person is the person who I'm looking for. After confirming, I will inform you again. No problem. Remember that you have to be very careful. Also, isn't the real god who you paid 2 white blaze fruits to get the owner of the Sky Sword Mountain to release from the Sky Sword prison in the Starland? You can look for him and get him to go with you, Hall Master Yuan said. Big Brother Fiery King? Jian Wushuang's eyes brightened up. Not long after the fight in Wu Bei's cave had ended, the Fiery King was released by the owner of the Sky Sword Mountain. After he came out, he sent a message to Jian Wushuang at once to thank him. Moreover, in recent years the Fiery King also came from the Sky Sword Mountain to the Star Land personally to thank Jian Wushuang in person. Hence, at that very moment, the Fiery King was staying in the Star Land. Jian Wushuang sent a message to the Fiery King at once. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.